Welcome to Creepy Vibes. Tonight, we're exploring 20 people who took a wrong turn in Texas and disappeared travelers who veered off the beaten path and vanished without a trace. From fog-choked backroads to ghost towns erased from every map, these true tales will make you think twice before trusting your GPS. These aren't just vanishings, they're warnings. And each one could be closer than you think. But before we step into the darkness, here's a chilling fact. Most viewers make one fatal mistake. They watch once, then leave without subscribing. By doing that, they miss out on the eeriest, pulse-pounding stories that only the bravest dare to hear. Don't be one of them. Hit that subscribe button now because tonight's only the beginning, and the terror lurking in Texas backroads is far from over. Tell me, where are you watching from? What time is it there? Drop it in the comments because here, the night never ends and the horror is just getting started. Now, let's take that wrong turn. They say Highway 281 stretches like a spine down the middle of Texas, from the flatlands up near Wichita Falls to the long, low breath of South Texas scrubland. But there's a stretch near Alice that no one talks about after dark. Locals know it. Truckers avoid it. Even Google Maps glitches when you try to zoom in too close. The road itself looks the same. Blacktop, ditches, power poles leaning like drunks. But when the sun dips below the mesquite trees and the sky turns that deep bruised purple, something out there wakes up. Or maybe it never sleeps. Miguel Sanchez was a long-haul trucker with 20 years behind the wheel and not much to show for it but bad knees, a busted marriage, and a tattoo of a falcon on his forearm that had faded into a smudge. He didn't scare easy, not from storms, not from tire blowouts in the middle of nowhere. But what happened on the night of March 2nd changed him, or broke him. Or maybe both. He was hauling a load of dry goods south to McAllen. Nothing fancy. Canned corn, paper towels, boxes of plastic forks. The kind of haul that let you turn the radio up and drift. It was just past 10 p.m. when he passed the sign that read, Alice 17 miles. The sky was clear. His coffee was still warm. The CB was silent except for the occasional static burst. He should have been relaxed. But his hands had been sweating since Mathis. That's when he saw her. She was standing just off the shoulder. One foot on gravel, one on asphalt, like she was deciding whether to cross or disappear. Long black hair, thin arms, denim shorts and a pale yellow tank top that fluttered in the wind like it had its own breath. She didn't wave, didn't smile. Just stood there with her thumb down by her side, not even lifted properly, like the act of hitchhiking wasn't really the point. Miguel slowed down. He didn't know why. Maybe guilt. Maybe habit. Maybe because there was something familiar in the way she looked at him, like she already knew him. Had been waiting for this truck specifically. He pulled over. She walked without urgency. Step by step. Barefoot, he realized. No shoes. Feet. Like porcelain, not a speck of dirt on them despite the gravel. When she opened the door, he caught a scent. Not perfume, not sweat, but something sharp and metallic. Like copper and rainwater. She climbed up, sat quietly, and shut the door without a word. You headed to Alice? Miguel asked, eyes still forward, voice steady. She turned slowly. Smiled. It wasn't a wide smile. Just enough to make him notice. Her teeth, too white, too perfect, like they were trying too hard to be human. Yes, she said. That was all. No thanks. No explanation. Just yes. Miguel drove. The road ahead curved slightly, swallowed by the dark. Something about the air inside the cab felt off, heavy. He turned down the AC, then realized it wasn't on. The air was thick and cold on its own. He glanced over. She was staring out the windshield, eyes wide, like she was trying to see something. Far, far ahead. Maybe something only she could see. He tried again. Name's Miguel. You from around here? No answer. Just that smile. Slightly wider now. Enough to make his stomach tighten. As they passed mile marker 411, the radio came alive with a low burst of static. Then a voice. Not a DJ, not a song. Just a whisper, repeating one word. Turn. Miguel looked at the radio. The display was blank. Just glowing red. Did you hear that? He asked. She turned her head. Not fast, not slow. Like a marionette controlled by uncertain fingers. Her eyes met his. They weren't brown, not even hazel. They were black, all black. No whites, no shine. Just void. Miguel's heart started racing. Then she whispered, "You shouldn't have stopped." He slammed the brakes. The truck screeched. Tires screamed against the road. The cab shuddered and pitched forward. When the truck finally stopped, he was panting, heart hammering like it was trying to break free. She was gone. Door shut. No trace, no footsteps, no shadow, just gone. He looked around. Highway 281 stretched silent in both directions. The trees didn't move. The wind had stopped. Even the insects had gone quiet. Miguel sat there for several minutes, trying to catch his breath, trying to convince himself it was a hallucination, maybe a heat mirage, maybe lack of sleep. But when he looked in the rearview mirror, the back of the cab wasn't empty. She was sitting on the bed behind him, smiling. When they found him the next morning, the truck was still moving, not fast, just crawling at 5 miles an hour down the shoulder, engine idling, front lights dimmed. Miguel was in the driver's seat, still gripping the wheel, eyes wide, mouth stretched into a smile so wide it looked like his cheeks had torn slightly at the corners. His eyes had dried out from not blinking. The falcon tattoo on his arm had faded even more, almost completely gone, like it had peeled itself away from his skin. He didn't speak, didn't scream, didn't react when the medics pulled him out. Just smiled. He's been in a state hospital ever since. Sometimes, late at night, nurses say he whispers a single word over and over again. Turn. And somewhere along Highway 281, near the town of Alice, if you drive past mile marker 411 at the wrong hour, you might see her, standing on the shoulder. Barefoot. Smiling. The dispatcher at Amarillo Yard 17 still remembered the voice crackling over the CB, faint, drowned in static and wind, like it was slipping through a tunnel in a dream. "Something's in the corn," the voice said. Then a hitch in breath. Then nothing. No click, no sign-off. Just dead air. The call came in from Roy Camden, a seasoned long-haul driver out of Abilene. He wasn't the kind of man to spook. 28 years behind the wheel, 3 near-fatal pileups, and he still laughed in the face of Oklahoma ice storms. Roy had a dog-eared picture of his ex-wife taped to his visor, a cracked Jesus bobblehead on the dash, and an ashtray overflowing with decades of ghost stories he never told. Until that night, Roy had a load of steel sheets bound for a prefab warehouse outside of Clayton, New Mexico. The route was straight enough: Highway 87 up past Dumas, then west on 87A. But Roy hated Dumas, not for the people, but for the stretch of cornfields that ran like a gray sea along Farm Road 1067. "It ain't right," he once told a rookie during a truck stop coffee break in Shamrock. "That road don't got birds, don't got bugs, just corn. Corn and air like old breath." Nobody took him seriously. Roy drank hard, slept harder, and told tales too much like campfire stories. But he never made things up, and he never left a route. Until that night. It was a moonless Thursday. Roy had crossed into Dumas at around 10:42 p.m. There were reports of a semi scene. turning off 287 onto FM 1067. No reason to. It wasn't shorter, it wasn't smoother, it wasn't faster. But someone matching Roy's rig-old Kenworth, rusted red cab, one flickering tail light was spotted turning west into the corn. The fields out there go on forever. No fences, no signs, just rows and rows of dry, whispering stalks swaying even when there's no wind. Locals don't plant that corn anymore. Hell, no one's seen farmers out there since the 70s, but the corn keeps coming back. Tall, pale, off color, not yellow, not green. Gray, almost translucent in the headlights, like it's been bled of chlorophyll. Like it's feeding on something. Else. Roy radio dispatch at 11:03 p.m. Camden here. Something's in the corn. They thought it was a joke. The new guy laughed, tried to reply, but Roy didn't answer. The channel stayed open, dead silent, like someone had the mic pressed down but wouldn't speak. Then it cut. They tried for 2 hours after that. No ping from his GPS, no cell signal. Just vanished. By morning, the sheriff's department put together a search party. They found tire tracks veering off FM 1067 just past mile marker 3. Deep. Grooves like Roy slammed the brakes, swerved into the corn. No signs of a crash, no debris. Just the impression of his rig disappearing into the rows like it had been swallowed whole. The corn was wrong. Search. Dogs wouldn't enter the field. They whimpered, ears flat, tails tucked. The volunteers stepped in anyway, only a few feet, just enough to look. The corn whispered, not in the wind but in rhythm, like something breathing underneath. Leaves curled inward like hands. Stalks bent toward them even when untouched. They found no truck, no body, no sign of Roy, but they did find something, about 30 yards in, where the stalks grew too dense for natural light. One volunteer, a school janitor named Troy Banks, stumbled into an opening. A perfect circle, like something massive had pressed the corn down from above. No prints, just a smear of blood, a twisted pair of wire-rimmed glasses, and a crumpled, yellowing photo of a woman with a cigarette smile taped to the corner. They took the picture. Roy's ex-wife, the same photo from his visor. The glasses were his, bent in half like someone had crushed them in a fist. They never found the truck. Or Roy. After that night, others started reporting strange things on that stretch of road. Lights moving against the wind. Static on radios that weren't even on. One rookie driver claimed a figure ran alongside his truck through the corn tall. Pale, too fast to be human, its limbs jerking like a puppet. Locals said the corn was old. Planted back in the Dust Bowl days by families that vanished when the soil gave up. No one ever bought that land, but no one tore the corn down either. They say the land remembers. That the corn keeps what it's given. 3 months later, a crop duster. Pilot flying too low near FM 1067 crashed his plane into the fields. Wreckage was found. Body wasn't, but inside the twisted fuselage, strapped to the pilot's seat with a seatbelt he didn't wear, was a dented thermos filled with lukewarm coffee and a bobblehead of Jesus, its head still nodding. They buried an empty casket for Roy Camden in a potter's field outside Abilene. His sister tried to sue the county, but there wasn't enough evidence he'd ever been anywhere. The records vanished, logbooks, way station entries, camera footage, as if he'd never existed. Only the photo remained, curled and faded edges. Burned like it had been too close to something hot. To this day, the corn still stands. The county tried once to burn it. Fire breaks, controlled ignition, but the flames didn't catch. The matchboxes went damp in every hand. Lighters died. And from the edge of the field, witnesses say they heard the sound of a diesel engine rumbling, then idling, then stopping somewhere deep inside. And if you go out there, Down FM 1067, especially past midnight, they say the corn opens. Not with wind. Not with touch. It just breathes and waits. And every now and then, someone hears the CB crackle to life on Channel 19, long since dead, and Roy's voice comes through, low and distant. Something's in the corn, it says, but this time it's not asking for help. The sign leaned like it had been there for 100 years, the paint cracked and bleached by sun and rain. It barely caught the sunlight between the trees, an old wooden plank nailed to a post. Hand-painted letters barely legible through the decay, gives Dry Hollow. Below it, someone had stenciled Population 32 in neat, careful strokes, fresher than the rest. Maybe even done that week. None of the 5 teenagers in the rusted-out Suburban had ever heard of Dry Hollow. They'd all grown up in the hill, country, been down every back road, haunted every gas station that sold cigarettes to minors, and knew the names of every podunk town from Junction to Fredericksburg. But Dry Hollow? No one had even mentioned it. Aaron was driving, hands tight on the wheel, knuckles white. In the passenger seat, Mark raised an eyebrow at the sign. Dry Hollow? He muttered. That's not on GPS. Sarah, in the middle row, leaned forward between them. Didn't your granddad say something about a hollow once? Something about it being cursed or... That was Devil's Hollow, Aaron snapped. Whole different place. And anyway, he was just drunk. Still. From the back, Josh grinned. Bet it's haunted. Next to him, Kaylee didn't say a word. She'd been quiet since they left the last gas station 20 miles back. Mark pointed down the thin trail that peeled off the main road. It's not even paved, so? Josh said, already pulling out his phone. Could be an old town. Could be abandoned. Could be cool. Could be, I don't know, TikTok worthy. They laughed. Aaron didn't, but she turned the wheel. Gravel crunched under the tires as they passed the sign. For a second, it looked like someone had added something else to the bottom of the post. A little scribble in red, but it blurred past too fast. Kaylee turned her head, just slightly. I think it said something under the population, she whispered. What? Josh asked. I thought it said, always 32. The trees closed in quickly. Pines, oaks, and scrub brush arched overhead like a tunnel. The road wound tightly, so narrow you couldn't fit 2 cars side by side. No cell signal, no traffic. No sounds but tires, engine, and the soft hush of wind through leaves. 15 minutes passed before the woods opened up into a clearing. Crooked, paint-chipped wooden sign arched over the road ahead. Welcome to Dry Hollow established. 1892 population. 32, the paint on population was fresh. Bright white. Still tacky looking. Someone's taking care of this place, Sarah said. But, look at it, Aaron muttered. The town looked like it had been forgotten for half a century. The storefronts were wooden, gray, and warped. The windows dusty or cracked. A post office with one broken door swung in the wind. A church stood at the far end, its steeple bent like a crooked finger. Yet not a single weed grew. The sidewalks were swept. The grass was neatly trimmed. Curtains hung in the windows. Where are the people? Josh jumped out first. Let's walk around. It's cool. Creepy cool. They wandered through the streets, calling out half-joking hellos. No one answered. Not even an echo. The sun was starting to dip low. Mark frowned. Weird thing? I don't think we passed another car. On the way in. Not one. No tire tracks but ours, Sarah pointed. There's a diner. The sign above it read Mabel's Kitchen. The windows were clean. A fan spun lazily inside. I smell biscuits, Josh said. Swear to God. They walked in. The bell. Above the door rang. Inside, the booths were pristine. Table settings perfect. Silverware clean. But no one was there. Aaron stepped behind the counter and pulled open the kitchen door. The scent hit her like a memory. Cornbread, greens, bacon, fat. A pot was simmering. The stove was on. A pie cooled on the sill. "No way," she said. Someone had just been here. They turned to leave, but the door didn't open. Josh rattled it. "It's stuck." Aaron yanked the knob. "No, it's locked." Kaylee whispered, "We didn't lock it." A soft creak echoed down the street outside. The sound of another door opening. "Did you hear that?" Sarah hissed. They stood frozen, then a soft shuffle. Footsteps, slow, rhythmic. Mark peeked through the slats of the blind, his breath caught. "Guys, there's someone out there." A man stood at the edge of the sidewalk. Bowler hat, long wool coat, black and stiff with age. He wasn't moving, just standing, staring. Another creak. Another figure stepped from a store across the street. Then another from the alley. Each wore the same thing. Black coats, old-timey boots, pale faces that didn't look right, like old wax dolls with glassy eyes and stretched smiles. "Back door," Aaron said. They found it and burst out into an alley. The sky was darker now, tinged red and violet. Across the alley, more figures waited. No one chased them. No one moved fast. Just slow steps forward. Like they knew the kids had nowhere to go. Kaylee screamed, bolting left. They followed, tearing. Through the streets, the church doors were open. They ran inside. Candles flickered. Rows of pews stretched ahead. A soft organ tune played, though no one sat at the keys. On the altar, a board hung with white letters. "Welcome, newcomers population." 3-2. Josh counted out loud, panting. "There's 5 of us." "Yeah," Sarah said, eyes wide. "But the sign already said 32 when we came in." The door slammed. They spun. 32 figures now stood in the pews, silent, watching. The air shifted. The candles went out. And in the dark, the organ kept playing. Only now it wasn't a hymn. It was something else. A heartbeat in the keys. A warning, a promise. The next morning, the welcome sign outside Dry Hollow had changed. Population 32. The paint was still fresh. The gate wasn't locked, which was the first odd thing. Jared Sutton was 39, lean, sun-chapped, and good with a rifle. He'd driven down from Cotulla in a rust-red Chevy with a cracked windshield and a bucket full of deer tags that he hadn't yet used. His cousin had told him about a private plot of land west of Loretto. Nothing fancy, just thick brush, mesquite groves, and enough feral hogs to make a man rich if he could stomach the work. But Jared wasn't after hogs. He was after a buck he'd seen 3 nights before near Highway 359. Big as a damn horse, antlers like a dead tree's twisted limbs. Not tagged, not owned, not fenced in. Free game. He'd seen a rusted fence line on the map. Satellite view showed a narrow trail veering from an old gravel road, unnamed. Looked abandoned. That's where he found the gate, the hinges. Groaned like something alive when he pushed them open. Dust rose from the gravel like ash. The land stretched wide, choked with prickly pear and cedar and just enough openness to track something. Jared slipped through, rifle slung across his shoulder, and let the gate fall shut behind him. It clicked, even though there was no latch. He noticed that, but said nothing. He figured he'd hike about a mile, post up under the tree line, and wait for dusk. That's when the big one would come. They always did. Animals like that didn't fear dark. They belonged to it. The ground was wrong. That was the next thing. No tire tracks, no boot prints, no broken twigs. It had rained 2 nights before. But the earth here wasn't mud, it was gray, like powdered bone, soft and dry, and it didn't hold a print no matter how hard he stepped. The brush was too still. Not a bird, not a chirp, not a breeze. Only the sun burning over the tops of the trees, and a strange humming in the air, too low to be heard properly, too deep to be ignored. He walked anyway. That's what hunters do. You walk until it doesn't make sense to turn around. He found the first shrine about half a mile in. A crude cross, lashed together from mesquite branches and zip ties, bound with black cloth that flapped though there was no wind. The base was a circle of crushed beer cans, feathers, and a rabbit skull missing its jaw. He snorted. Locals. Probably some weird folk magic, a superstition like putting chili powder on the tires to ward off snakes. Jared stepped around it and pressed on, but more shrines came. Every 100 yards or so, like mile markers. Each more twisted than the last. One had what looked like a child's shoe nailed to the post. Another had candles red wax, long since melted into puddles that looked like blood. The last one had words scratched into the bark of a tree behind it. Lal. Vendra con la luna. He didn't speak Spanish, not well, but he knew the tone. He knew warnings when he saw them. The sky turned fast. That's how it happens in South Texas. The light falls off like it's been switched off at the source, shadows crawling out faster than they should, as if racing to beat the sun. He perched near a thick trunk and set his rifle across his knees, watching, waiting. That's when the trees began to whisper. At first, he thought it was the wind finding its voice. Then he realized it wasn't in the branches, it was coming from below. A low murmur, like a crowd muttering from underground. Too many voices. And not all of them were speaking Spanish. He raised the scope to his eye and scanned the clearing. Ahead, shapes moved between the trees, not animals, not deer or hog. They stood too straight, too still. No shimmer of eyes in the dark, just outlines and that whispering which grew louder. The kind of sound that wraps around your spine and makes you forget what your name is. Jared stood. He took a step back. Then another dot and the forest changed. The trees. They weren't mesquite anymore. They were taller. Their bark black and wet like oil. Their limbs curled in unnatural ways, pointing downward, like they were reaching for something buried. The ground, once soft, now cracked like dry clay. That hum, constant and vibrating, rose until it rattled his teeth. Jared tried to speak, but his voice came out wrong, too slow, like sound underwater. He turned. The path was gone. No footprints behind him. No crushed shrubs, no trail of broken branches. Just more of those impossible trees, crowding in. The shrines had vanished. Ran, straight ahead. Didn't matter where. A man doesn't argue with trees that whisper in tongues. He didn't notice the figures until they moved. 3 of them, standing just outside the edges of his vision. No eyes, no mouths. Their skin looked sewn on too tight, like the leather. Wrap of an old saddle. They didn't walk. They shifted, one moment far, the next close enough to smell. They stank of copper and mildew and wet breath. Jared raised his rifle, fired once, twice, nothing. No sound, no recoil. The gun didn't work, or he didn't. Either way, it didn't matter. The whispering stopped. Silence fell like a curtain, and something spoke. Not in words, but in understanding. A voice inside him, not his own. Cold, amused. You entered without asking. His knees gave out. You took without offering. His eyes burned. You hunted where the blood has already been claimed. Jared tried to scream, but no air came. Something touched the back of his neck. Cold, but not physical. Like the idea of being touched. Then he was elsewhere. A room, or a cave, or a memory, hard to say. The walls breathed. Shadows drifted like smoke. and in the center a deer, the one he'd been chasing. But now it stood on two legs, its antlers writhing like vines, its eyes empty and dripping pitch. It opened its mouth, and inside teeth, too many, all human. Last thing Jared saw was his own reflection in those teeth. They found the truck 2 weeks later, just off a back road that didn't show up on maps. Engine cold, doors locked, gun case still in the back. The gate was there, but twisted, bent inward like something had forced its way through. They never found Jared, not a track, not a boot, not a drop of blood dot, but sometimes when the moon rises low and orange over the brush, hunters swear they hear a voice in the wind dot, whispering dot in perfect Spanish. El se convirtió en uno de nosotros. He became one of us. The rain had only started an hour ago, but already the hill country roads were slick with runoff and scattered gravel. Amanda Ruiz had been driving since Austin, having wrapped up her Friday marketing conference late. She was supposed to be back home in Mason by 9, but a missed turn near Marble Falls and her GPS freaking out had stretched the ride into something closer to midnight. Her eyes flicked to the phone mounted to her dash. The familiar blue route on Google Maps had vanished blank. White now, with a spinning wheel in the middle. No signal. A low warning tone chimed as the screen blinked red and rerouted her. Rerouting. In 200 feet, turn right onto Burn Mill Road. Burn Mill? Amanda glanced at the road sign as her high beam swung to the right. There was no paved road, just a gap between two leaning wooden fence posts and a dirt track mostly covered in overgrowth and wet brush. Her wipers screeched on the glass, the rain heavier now, hammering the hood. She slowed the car, peered out. No houses nearby. No driveways. Just mesquite trees, dense black shadows, and something that looked like rusted-out farm equipment abandoned. Near the gate. She hesitated, then cursed under her breath, reversed a few feet, and turned in. The tires bumped and crunched over gravel and soaked soil. For a while, the trees pressed close, scratching against the sides of her car. Her headlights caught strange things now and then, old barbed wire strung uselessly through tree trunks, a windmill with no blades, a half-collapsed wooden shed with a door hanging open like a mouth waiting to speak. And then came the smell. Not cow dung or skunk, but something old and sweet and sick. Like a meat locker that had lost power days ago. Amanda rolled up her window tighter, though it was already closed. GPS? She asked the dead screen. Nothing. Just that rerouted line still snaking ahead into white space. 100 yards in, the dirt road changed. The gravel under her tires turned solid, but not concrete. Black stone. Slick and perfectly smooth. Her tires no longer hissed, they whispered. The trees lining the path straightened, as if suddenly placed by hand, and the wind stopped altogether. Rain still fell, but there was no sound of it hitting her roof now. Only the occasional squeak of her wipers and the hum of her engine, and the air, dead still air. Like everything had gone flat, she blinked and looked around. Her headlights shone maybe 30 feet ahead, the road still winding between trees. But it felt wrong. Like there was something out ahead, just beyond the beam. Watching. Waiting. Then her headlights flickered. Just once. A hiccup. Her heart skipped. She leaned forward, peering through the windshield, then let out a gasp. A woman was standing in the middle of the road. Amanda slammed the brakes. The car skidded and stopped, just in time. The woman hadn't moved. She was pale. Not white like a blonde in the moonlight, but bloodless. Her face was long, hair dark and wet, and she wore a dress that clung to her body like it had been soaked for hours. It shimmered strangely, gray and green, old-fashioned, like something from a 60s church photograph. She wasn't breathing. Just staring. Amanda stared back, frozen. The woman lifted one hand slowly and pointed down the road. Not a wave. Not a greeting. Just a direction. Amanda shook her head, throat dry. Are you okay? No answer. She lowered the window just a crack. Do you need help? But the woman only pointed. Amanda's heart thudded against her ribs. Her hands were wet on the steering wheel. Something in her said, don't go forward. Something in her gut said, turn around. But when she looked behind her, she saw nothing. Not the shed. Not the rusted fence. Not even the road dot, just black trees and endless dark. She turned back to the front. The woman was gone. Vanished. Amanda leaned forward and shouted, Hey, where are you? Silence. Then the GPS chirped. In 500 feet, stay left. She stared at the screen. It had color again. The route had reappeared. Shaking, she pressed the gas. The road narrowed even more now. Not enough for two cars, just hers. The trees overhead nodded into arches, and the darkness ahead looked thicker than what her headlights could pierce. Her stomach churned. Up ahead, a house appeared, or rather, a building that may have once been a house. The kind you see in black and white photos. Narrow porch, wide eaves, crooked steps leading up to a door that hung open. A single oil lantern burned in the window. The GPS tone rang again. You have arrived at your destination. Amanda slammed her hand on the screen. No, this isn't right. Where the hell am I? She reached for the gear shift just as something knocked on the passenger side. Window. 3 sharp raps. She screamed and turned. Nothing there. No one. But the window had. Fogged over in the shape of a handprint. 5 long fingers. Pressed cold and heavy against the glass. She reversed. Hard. The car jolted back. And then stopped. Her tires spun in place. No traction. As if she were stuck in glue or mud. Or something thicker. Her headlights dimmed again. Then, everything died. Engine. Lights. Screen. Total blackness. Her breath came shallow now. Her hand shook as she reached for her phone. No signal. No light. She sat there trying not to cry when she heard the footsteps. Slow, crunching steps on gravel. Coming closer from the front. Then the sound of someone stepping onto the porch. The boards creaked. Then silence. Then a second set of steps. Behind her. She turned to look, but couldn't move. Her body was frozen. She could only stare forward as the car slowly filled with fog from her own breath and something colder. And then, in the fogged windshield, she saw them, dozens of faces, peering in pale, blank, silent. Some with blood on their lips, some with missing eyes, some with faces, half melted like wax, all staring. A woman's voice whispered in her ear, though no one was beside her. You missed your exit. Amanda opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came. The next morning, the sheriff found the gate she turned through. It wasn't open anymore. Just rusted poles sealed by decades of vine growth and wire. The sign was half rotted, but he could still read the faded letters. Burn Mill Road, closed since 1963. No tire tracks. No fresh breaks in the brush. No Amanda, but a single line of wet footprints led from the gate into the woods, barefoot, small, like a woman's. They disappeared. After 30 feet, just like she did. The scenic route wasn't on their GPS. That was the first sign. Mike chalked it up to outdated maps, like so many backcountry roads in rural Texas. Those little veins of cracked pavement with names like Devil's Bend, Widow's Hollow, or Whisper. Hill that hadn't seen an update since the Carter administration. It was Karen's idea, really. Let's take the scenic way, she said. It'll be fun. We'll stretch our legs, see the real Texas. That was her whole thing. Instagrammable adventure, rustic aesthetics, and wholesome family bonding. for her 6,000 followers. The sun had just dipped low enough to paint the clouds orange and pink when they passed the faded green sign, bolted quickly to a leaning post. Devil's Bend RD Scenic Viewpoint 6Me. The letters were sun-peeled, like something out of an old Polaroid, barely legible through the scratches and dirt. Karen squealed, clapping her hands like a child. "That's it, turn there." Mike hesitated. The turnoff wasn't a proper road. It was more like a worn path, barely 2 lanes wide, the asphalt crumbling into dust at the shoulders, clawed at by wild brush and tall, unkempt trees. But Karen was already craning over the dash, her phone up, snapping pictures. The kids in the back, Ben, 14, Lacey, 11, and Jake, 9, were half awake, slumped against backpacks, cranky from the heat and the endless highway. Only Karen was fully alive, practically glowing with purpose. He turned. They passed an old gate first. Just 2 rusted metal poles with a frayed chain sagging across, unlocked and open like a mouth with broken teeth. It didn't look like a route to any scenic point. It looked like a forgotten driveway. But they kept going, Karen giddy, narrating everything for his story post. The trees closed in quickly, limbs overhanging like arms ready to wrap around the minivan. The GPS stopped showing progress. The screen just froze. Karen switched to her compass app. It spun in slow circles, unable to decide. Mike didn't say anything at first. The road was so narrow now he could barely avoid the potholes. Thorns scraped both sides of the car like fingernails on metal. It started getting darker, faster than it should have. The sky still held some color, but in the woods around them, night had already arrived. That was when the road forked, not left or right, but upward. A steep incline, barely a trail. More. Gravel than pavement, with water stains like old blood leaking from cracks in the rocks. Mike's foot lifted off the gas. "That's not right," he muttered. He turned to Corinne, but her face was different now. Not smiling, focused. "Just a little farther," she said, more serious than before. The air changed around them. Not cooler, heavier. Like the air after a lightning strike, tinged with metal and something foul. The smell of wet dirt and something deeper, like rot or wet fur. Jake made a whining sound in the back seat. "Mom, I think we should turn around." But the road was too narrow. There was no room to turn. Trees on one side, drop on the other. They had to keep going. Another half-mile and the van lurched. Not from a pothole, from underneath. Something thumped against the undercarriage hard enough to shake them. What the hell was that? Mike barked, stopping the car. He threw it in park and jumped out, expecting to see a rock, maybe a tree limb. There was nothing. No debris. No rock, no roadkill. Just gravel that had been disturbed, pushed upward in a strange, deliberate pattern, like something had risen and sunk back down. He looked around. The woods were silent. Too silent. No insects, no birds. Just the idling of the van and the ringing stillness of a place untouched by time. "Mike, get back in the car," Corinne said, her voice thin and distant. He did, but the gear shift wouldn't move. The van was stuck in park, unresponsive. The lights on the dash blinked rapidly and then all shut off at once. "Nope," he said, turning the key. The engine didn't start. He tried again. Nothing. Jake started crying. Lacey pulled her legs up onto the seat like she was trying to avoid, touching the floor. Even Ben, who thought he was too old for fear, stared out the window, pale. Then they heard it. A knock. From the back of the van. Not a branch. Not a thump. A knock. 3 slow, deliberate raps against the rear door. Nobody moved. Corinne's eyes were huge. Mike whispered, "Lock the doors." She tried. Nothing happened. The power was out. Another. Knock. Then footsteps. Not in the woods, On the roof, something was walking slowly from the rear to the front. The roof dented above Karen's seat. The metal groaned. Something leaned down. They saw it through the windshield, only a shadow at first, but then too many limbs. Joints that bent the wrong way. The face was just a suggestion, like smoke behind glass, eyes that weren't eyes, mouth too wide, dripping with something dark. It tapped a finger on the windshield. Not hard. A gentle reminder, come out, Mike yelled. He turned the key over. And over. The engine roared to life. He slammed the gas. The van screeched down the incline, fishtailing, tires sliding on gravel and loose soil. The thing slid backward, laughing, or maybe just making a sound like laughter. The windshield wipers turned on by themselves. The radio screamed static, then music from decades ago, a woman's voice singing something in Spanish, off-key, and slow. The road straightened. The gate appeared. Again, they burst through, and that's where they stopped. The car rolled to a halt at the main road. The engine was running, but no one was driving. Inside, empty. All 6 doors hung open, as if every member of the family had calmly stepped out at once. No footprints led away. The seats were warm. A phone sat on the dashboard. Screen cracked, but still playing that strange song on repeat. Karen's last photo showed the woods, blurry, with a shadow in the shape of a man or something pretending to be one, standing just behind the trees. The police searched. Helicopters, dogs, volunteers. Nothing. They towed the car, but the gas tank never dropped a single notch. No matter how far they drove it. It sits now in a police impound lot, sealed off, cordoned, rust spreading across its body like rot. Some say they hear things inside it at night, whispering in old dialects, voices asking for directions. One mechanic claimed he saw fingerprints appear on the inside of the windshield while he stood watching. No one drives it, and no one has ever found Devil's Bend again. Not on a map. Not by accident, but sometimes, rarely, a traveler says they saw a crooked green sign off the highway, bent at an angle, half swallowed by trees. Those who follow it never seem to come back. Only. The engine returns, always full, always running, always waiting. The fog rolled in just after midnight. Not the soft, smoky veil you'd see hanging over a cow pasture in the cool of early spring, but a thick, suffocating mass that moved like it had a mind of its own. Waxahachie was used to strange weather. Texas didn't believe in seasons so much as sudden shifts, but this fog was different. It wasn't forecast. It wasn't natural. Travis Beck was a long-haul man, mid-40s. Lean from years behind the wheel, but still carrying a wiry strength in his arms. His truck was a red 2006 F250 that growled like a caged dog and still had cassette tapes in the glove box. That night, he was heading home after dropping off antique furniture in Waco. The delivery had gone late, and he was looking forward to a cold beer and the familiar squeak of his recliner. He took Route 77, same as always, and was about 10 miles out of Waxahachie when the fog hit. At first, it crawled across the road like spilled milk, hugging the ground and licking at his tires. Then it thickened, swallowing his headlights, smothering the world outside the windshield. Travis slowed to 20, then 15, then 10. It was like driving through wet cotton. The brights only made things worse. He grunted, rolled the window down to get a better look, and instantly regretted it. The air was cold and damp, yes, but it also carried a smell that didn't belong. Not just musty or earthy. It smelled like old meat and stagnant water, like something that had drowned a long time ago and never been buried. Right. Travis tapped the wheel, leaning forward. What in the hell? He keyed his CB radio, an old habit when visibility dropped. Breaker, this is Red Horse, Anyone got eyes past mile marker 38? This fog's thicker than a butcher's thumb. A long silence. Then, just as he reached for the dial, came static and a voice. His own. It's not fog. The hairs on his arm stood straight. He stared at the radio, heart thudding in his chest. The voice was distorted but unmistakably his. Not just the tone, but the rhythm, the little hitch he always had when nervous. He hadn't spoken those words. Not yet. He let go of the wheel and the truck idled forward, tires crunching softly over the asphalt. The fog wasn't just hiding things, it was shifting them. Landmarks vanished. There was no shoulder, no fences, no road signs. The world outside the truck ceased to exist, replaced by a pale gray that seemed to press against the glass. Travis flicked the high beams off, squinting. Something moved across the road ahead. A tall shadow, gangly like a man but lurching too fast and crooked, as if its limbs didn't belong to the same body. He slammed the brakes. The truck groaned and stopped just inches from where the shape had passed. But there was nothing there. No prints, no motion. Just the fog pressing inward. He turned the radio knob again. This is Red Horse. Come back. I think someone's out here. Might be a wreck or... hell, I don't know. A new voice responded, garbled and low. Turn off your lights. Travis blinked. Say again. Turn them off. He reached for the switch, then hesitated. What? Kind of fool turned their lights off in a fog like this? The voice came again. This time it was a chorus. His voice. A woman's voice. A child's. All whispering the same phrase. Turn them. Off. Something slammed against the driver's side door. Hard. The mirror snapped clean off and bounced down the road. Travis yelled, jerking the wheel. The fog inside the cab grew colder, and his breath began to fog up the windshield. From the inside, he turned off the lights, and the world went black. For a full minute, he sat still, panting. The only sound was the idle rumble of the engine and the soft tick of the air vents. The radio hissed gently. Then something lit up, not from his truck, but from deeper inside the fog. A dim orange glow, like fire seen through smoke, dancing and shifting ahead. Travis squinted. It wasn't headlights. It wasn't fire. It was windows. He could see the vague silhouette of a house. A 2-story farmhouse, broken shutters, sagging. Roof. Looked just like his grandfather's place out in Runnels County, except that house had burned down in 1998. He opened the door, stepping into the fog. The cold bit at him instantly. His boots echoed dully on the invisible pavement. He looked. Back. The truck was still running. Its cab lights cast a pale halo like a dying candle in a cave. Something whispered his name. He spun. Who's there? No answer. Just another shape, sliding between the fog like oil on water. Then another and another. He backed up toward. The glow dot as he got closer, the farmhouse grew clearer. But it wasn't just a house now. It was his house, the one he lived in with his ex-wife, the one with the broken screen door and the cedar shingles that never stayed nailed down. But they'd sold that place 5 years ago, and it had been bulldozed to make room for a strip mall. Yet there it was. Inside, a figure moved past the window. A girl. Blonde hair in a braid. Wearing the same dress his daughter wore the night she disappeared at age 7. In 2004, Julie? His throat went dry. The front door creaked open. A warm light spilled onto the grass. Wait, grass? He looked down. The road was gone. He stood now on a dirt path, weeds poking through cracks, and ahead, a crooked white porch wrapped around the house like a grin. He stepped forward. Inside, it smelled of burnt toast and lemon-scented cleaner. Pictures lined the hallway, all of them photos he knew, childhood birthdays. His first wedding, the day they brought Julie home from the hospital. His knees went weak. She stepped out of the kitchen. "Hi, Daddy." His eyes welled. "Julie? Baby, how?" She shook her head. "You shouldn't be here." The lights flickered. "They know you look too long. You heard them. That means they heard you back." Behind her, shapes were forming in the wallpaper, hands pressing through like trapped things, shadows oozing through floorboards, faces grinning, shifting, bleeding. "They're coming, Daddy." He stumbled backward as the hallway stretched. The doors twisted and melted. The walls bled light, not bright, but harsh, like surgical lamps under water. The girl wasn't his daughter. Her eyes were too dark, her voice too flat. "You drove into them. Now they'll drive into you." The house pulsed. He turned and ran, boots sliding on the wet ground outside. The fog was worse now, dense and humming like a beehive. He could still see the faint glow of his truck ahead, but every step stretched the distance. The truck never got closer. A hand grabbed his ankle. He fell face first into the mud. Not Texas mud, not even earthly. It stank of rot and ammonia. Worms slithered over his arms. Hands, dozens, reached from the ground, from the trees, from the fog itself. Grabbing, pulling, he screamed. The sound was swallowed whole. The last thing he saw before the world went black was the dash of his truck. His own body still sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead, mouth open, smiling. When troopers found the truck the next morning, it was still idling. Doors open. Driver's seat warm. Headlights on. But the fog was gone. And Travis Beck was never found. Only the radio recorded anything. Just after 2:17 a.m. It crackled once. It's not fog. They left the university campus around 4:15 p.m., just before sundown started to smear gold across the East Texas sky. 4 of them in a white Honda CR-V, the kind with graduation stickers and a fading bumper magnet that said "Fight the System." Erica was behind the wheel. Liam rode shotgun, earbuds dangling from his neck, spitting sunflower seed shells out the window. In the back were Yvonne and Jordan, half asleep and elbow to elbow. They were headed to Port Aransas for a weekend of bonfire drinking, ocean breeze, and forgetting the thesis deadlines that had been hanging over them like storm clouds. The GPS chirped cheerfully. In 0.2 miles, turn left on FM 1069. Should we take it? Liam asked, squinting at the sign as they passed. It says it'll cut 30 minutes off. I mean, it's a farm-to-market road. It's not like it's gonna vanish into the woods and dump us in Narnia, Erica said. Yvonne stirred from the back. That one of those towns with a population of 7 and a church that's also a gas station? I think it loops around, said Jordan, yawning. It's just a connector between the main highways. We'll hit the coast faster this way. Erica turned the wheel. The sign for FM 1069 was rusted, one of the bolts hanging loose. The green paint looked sun-faded and greasy. There wasn't another car in sight as they curved onto the narrow 2-lane. No lights, no houses, no shoulder. Just the occasional skeletal barbed wire fence and thick, waving grass that looked silver under the coming dusk. 10 minutes in, the road narrowed. The tall trees leaned in like eavesdroppers. Liam's phone buzzed with a text, but the screen froze when he tried to check it. Erica's GPS stuttered, glitched, then reset itself. She frowned. Did your signal just die? She asked. Jordan held up his phone. 0 bars. Probably just a dead zone. Guys, Yvonne said slowly, turning around to look behind them. Didn't we just pass that rusted-out mailbox? No, you're just getting sleepy, said Liam. You probably saw one just like it. But 20 minutes later, it was undeniable. They pulled up to a gas station. Not a gas station. The gas station. Old, creaky, fluorescent light buzzing above the single pump. Same flickering ICE cooler out front. Same plastic sign over the door, Miller's Fuel and Smokes. The letters on Smokes had melted from sun exposure, warped into almost nothing. Yvonne muttered, "Did we just loop back?" "I didn't turn around," Erica said, face pale, hands tight on the steering wheel. "I didn't miss a turn. I've been driving straight." "No way," Jordan said, already opening his door. "Maybe we're just tired. Let's grab drinks and ask the guy inside for directions." There wasn't a guy inside. The store looked closed, but the door creaked open when Jordan pushed it. It smelled like wet linoleum and burnt meat. The fridge lights flickered behind glass doors. A black and white security monitor buzzed silently on the wall, cycling through 4 identical images: the front counter, the gas pump, the road ahead. And the road behind. Each one empty. Liam stepped in next. "This place is a time capsule." "I think it's just abandoned," Yvonne said, peering into the cooler. "No drinks, not even dust, just rot." "Guys," Erica called from outside. "We shouldn't be here." The air had gone still. Trees stopped swaying. No bugs, no wind, no sound. It was like the whole area had paused. Jordan walked behind the counter. "There's a CB radio. Maybe I can raise someone." The moment he touched it, every screen in the store went black, then white, then flashed the same image in a harsh, grainy flicker. The Honda CR-V at the pump. Doors closed. No one inside. "What the hell?" Jordan said. Yvonne turned to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. It was stuck, not locked, just unmovable, like it had grown into the wall. "Kick it," Liam yelled, ramming it with his shoulder. It didn't budge. Then the lights snapped off. In the pitch black, something moved, slow and wet, slithering across the ceiling like it had too many limbs, but none that touched the ground. Yvonne screamed. Erica, still outside, yanked her door open and yelled for them, panic tightening her voice like a snare. Then she saw it in the rearview mirror. Not someone, something, walking across the road behind them, pale and bent, limbs in the wrong order. It wore clothing, but shredded and hanging like seaweed. It looked like a man who drowned then. Kept walking. She slammed her door shut, locked everything, flipped on the brights, and saw herself. Not a reflection. Not her in the seat. Someone else, her same face, same clothes, but the figure was outside the car, standing, grinning. Then it walked backward into the woods, never breaking eye contact. She screamed for the others. Only Liam stumbled out, pale, shivering, blood on his hands. He was mumbling, "It doesn't end, the road loops. You leave the store and you're back here again." I opened a cooler door and I was in the car. But the car was empty. "Where's Yvonne?" Erica asked. He looked at her like she was speaking a language he forgot. I don't think she ever existed." "What are you talking about?" He turned to the road. "We have to go. We have to drive. Don't stop. Don't look back. Not even in the mirrors." She hit the gas. They followed the line of FM 1069 again, this time not speaking, not blinking, not thinking, just holding their breath, every curve of the road identical. No animals. No signs, no lights. Just forest that seemed to get thicker. Darker, more alive. Then the gas station appeared. Again. Same damn pump. Same warped sign. Same emptiness. Liam opened the door and stepped out without a word. Walked into the woods. Didn't even look back. Erica screamed after him, but he vanished behind the trees. She tried to back up. The car wouldn't respond. The wheel was locked. The engine ran hot, but the gear shifter wouldn't budge. Then, dashboard GPS blinked awake. It showed a new message. Next loop, 59 minutes, 17 seconds. Erica stared at it, breath shallow, heart pounding in her throat. Behind her, the passenger door opened. Jordan got in. His face looked wrong, stretched, smiling too wide. Ready to try again? He said in a voice that wasn't his. The car pulled forward on its own. She screamed so loud it tore her throat. But the sound never left the car. FM 1069 doesn't appear on most maps anymore. Locals say it got merged into a bigger road or shut down after a fire in the 80s. But sometimes, late at night, if you're not paying attention, your GPS might chirp and offer you a shortcut to shave 30 minutes off your trip to the Kivinda coast. And if you take it, just remember this. The loop starts again every hour. And with each loop, fewer come back. He wasn't even supposed to be on Route 16. The detour sign was homemade. A crooked slab of plywood with orange spray paint barely spelling Alt Route Bridge Out. Cody paused at the fork, checking his phone. No service. Just miles of flatland and sunburnt Texas air. Heat shimmered on the blacktop like spilled gasoline. He wiped sweat off his brow and pedaled forward, tires crunching gravel before finding smooth pavement again. He was training for a triathlon. Solo rides through backroads helped him think, push through mental static. But this road felt different. Quiet. Too quiet. Even the cicadas were still. Cody's wheels whispered over the asphalt, and with each push, the emptiness around him deepened. Trees thinned. Telephone poles ended. No mailboxes. No fences. Just road and sky. After another 5 miles, something strange caught his eye. The road ahead began to split, but not like a typical fork. It cracked open, not gradually, not with curves, but with a long, jagged seam in the middle that ran up the road like a lightning bolt. The asphalt had literally separated into 3 lanes, left, right, and a broken center, jagged, crumbling with a dark slit down its belly. Cody braked. The air here smelled strange, almost metallic. He thought about turning back, but when he looked behind, the road was different. The line he'd just come down was now buckled, uneven, and seemed to narrow like it didn't want him to return. He faced the split again. Left was thick with overgrowth, trees crowding in unnaturally close. Right dipped into a valley, but he saw no end to it. Just a haze. But the center felt wrong. The crack gaped like a wound, but something inside him whispered that it wasn't just pavement. It was watching. He should have turned around. He should have picked a side. But Cody, who prided himself on pushing boundaries, on breaking through limits, felt a challenge in that dark gash. He told himself it was just old asphalt, maybe a sinkhole, maybe tectonic shift, whatever. He took a breath, adjusted his helmet, and rolled straight down the middle. The moment his tires crossed the cracked center, his surroundings shifted. There wasn't a jolt or a flash, just a slide, like slipping between film frames. The sky dimmed a shade, clouds thickened. Without moving, and the light went wrong. Not night, not day, like permanent dusk. His shadow vanished beneath him. The road behind him sealed shut, the cracked mouth now resewn like a scar. And then he saw the man, not far ahead. Standing dead center in the road was a tall, pale figure in a black suit. No bike, no car. Just standing still, like he'd been. Waiting. Cody slowed to a stop, heart knocking in his chest. The man didn't move, didn't wave, didn't even blink. His face was off, blurred around the edges like a smeared photo. No eyes, not exactly. More like deep hollows filled with flickering static. "Hey," Cody called out, instantly regretting it. His voice felt swallowed. The air had weight now, a pressure on his chest. The man turned slowly and began to walk toward him. Deliberate steps, heel to toe. Calm like a funeral march. Cody backed his bike, turned the handlebars, but the road behind him no longer resembled road. It was a flat, gray sheet. No seams, no lines, no tire marks. Where am I? He tried again, but the man kept coming. Cody turned back to the front, hoping to dart past, but now there were 3 men. Same suit, same blurred faces. One ahead, 2 closing in from the sides. And they were getting closer. He pedaled fast, hard, tires, screamed against the pavement, or whatever it was now, and he swerved past the figure on the right, barely brushing his sleeve. But there was no resistance. Just cold like skating. Past a freezer door left open too long. Behind him, he heard nothing. No feet, no breathing. But he knew they were following. The road changed again. Trees blinked in and out like a glitch. One moment they were tall pines, the next, gnarled oaks, then cacti. The scenery looped like the world was running out of textures to use. Cody kept riding, legs burning. Vision narrowing. Then, on the side of the road, he saw his bike. Another bike, exactly like his. Same model, same stickers. Lying on its side in the gravel. He slammed to a stop, stared. There was dried blood on the handlebars. Something red smudged across the saddlebag. His name, C. Murphy. Hard jackhammering. He got off and staggered toward it. Next to the bike, embedded half in the dirt, was a cell phone. His phone, same cracked screen. He reached down, picked it up. The screen blinked. One text. Just one. You picked wrong. Cody turned around, but no one was there. No road. No sky. Just black. When he woke, he was lying in the middle of a highway under a bright blue sky. His bike stood beside him, perfectly balanced. No crack in the road. No split. Just the original Route 16. A pickup truck honked. Swerving to avoid him. Cody scrambled up, waving, yelling, but the truck sped off. He looked around. Everything was back to normal. Birds chirped. Wind rustled the trees. He was alone, but when he checked his phone again, he saw the text was still there. You picked wrong, and his reflection in the screen wasn't smiling. It wasn't even his face anymore. It was blurry, smudged, as if whatever lived in the road had started replacing him, piece by piece. He was 38, recently divorced, and too proud to admit the silence in his new apartment was starting to eat at him. So Darren Case took to driving. Not aimlessly, no. He called it documenting America, like it was some kind of art school project. But in truth, it was a way to not be in that empty one-bedroom where the kitchen lights hummed loud enough to hear your own regrets. He'd throw his camera gear into the trunk, fill a thermos with gas station coffee, and follow backroads wherever they curled like ribbons across the Texas sprawl. He had no destination that day. Somewhere between Lulling and Lockhart, where the hills start to roll and the oak trees crowd the 2 lanes. The sun was just a fat, hazy coin above the mesquite, and he hadn't seen another car in over 40 minutes when he saw the sign. It was old, not quaint old, but forgotten old. Wood warped, nailed to a crooked fence post. No paint left except for ghost stains of what might have once been white letters. Still, someone had touched it up, maybe recently, because scratched into the board with what looked like a knife or nail were 3 words. Scenic view gives just like that. All uppercase. The arrow pointed down a gravel path that peeled off the road like an afterthought, half swallowed by brush and tire-rutted mud. There was no house nearby, no ranch gate, no mailbox. Something in Darren, call it instinct or maybe loneliness disguised as curiosity, made him turn the wheel. The tires crunched onto the gravel. His phone lost signal 30 seconds in. The path dipped and twisted between trees thick enough to scrape his side mirrors. Twice, he had to stop and move branches. 10 minutes passed, then 15. He was about to reverse out when the woods suddenly fell away, and he found himself in a wide clearing that looked untouched by time. No cows, no fences, just a wide slope of land falling gently down to a drop-off, a natural bluff overlooking a dry valley quilted in sage and shadow. It might have been beautiful once, might have earned the name scenic in a time before erosion and drought. Now it looked abandoned by the sun, pale and brittle, like the land had stopped trying. And there, tucked into the edge of the bluff like a secret, stood a house. It was 2 stories, built in that square farmhouse shape, but there were no visible doors. Just window frames, all empty, no glass, no curtains. The wood looked grayed, untreated, and old. A chimney leaned slightly, and part of the roof sagged like it had suffered one too many storms. But most disturbing wasn't the structure. It was the figure. A man stood on the roof, not standing like someone doing repairs or even a squatter checking a leak. He stood too still. Not even the wind touched him. He faced the trees, arms by his sides, watching. As Darren raised his camera, instinct, always instinct, the man slowly turned his head toward him. Just his head, and smiled. Darren snapped the photo. Then, unsure why his hands trembled, he lowered the camera. The man was gone. No sound, no motion, just that empty roof. For a full minute, Darren stood there beside his car, the engine ticking softly as it cooled. He waited for a door to open, for someone to emerge, shout at him, wave, anything. Nothing happened. Even the birds had gone quiet. He uploaded the photo from his camera onto his phone. The image loaded slowly, resolution sharp, clearer than expected, crisp even in the fading light. The house stood perfectly centered in the frame, that skeletal shell against the sky. And there, just like he saw, was the man. Only in the photo, he wasn't on the roof. He was closer, on the second floor, staring through the empty window frame. Still smiling, Darren zoomed in. The man's face was wrong. Too pale, too symmetrical. Eyes too round and unblinking. Like a wax figure someone left to melt in the attic and then put back, together wrong. That's when he should have left. But the house called to him. Not loudly, not even clearly. Just a whisper in the back of his skull that felt like memory. He wanted to see inside. He needed to know. He left the car running. The grass was dead around the house, crunched under his boots like old leaves. As he approached, he realized again, no doors, not on the front, not on the sides. Just dark windows. Like hollow eyes. He circled once. Then again, and then he saw it. A ladder leaned against the back of the house. So old the wood looked waterlogged, rotted, but it held his weight. The second floor was easier to climb into than he thought. He ducked under the frame and stood inside. The walls were bare wood slats, no paint, no wallpaper, no insulation. Just bones of a house long dried out. But there were things left behind. A child's wooden block, a yellowed newspaper stuck to the floor by time, a rocking chair near one window, its cushion rotted through. And then he saw the mirror. It was nailed to the far wall. A full-length antique mirror, too clean, too bright, out of place like a museum piece in a barn. He walked toward it. His reflection met him, and then at DIDN single quotes T. Darren stopped. In the mirror, the window behind him wasn't empty. In the mirror, the man stood there, grinning wide, closer than ever. As Darren turned, the window was empty. He looked back at the mirror. Now the man was behind him. His face was right at Darren's ear, mouth stretched open too wide. Darren spun and ran, stumbling down the ladder, feet slipping on the last rung. He hit the ground, bolted to the car. The engine sputtered but started. He reversed through the brush, scraping metal, tires spinning, gravel spitting. He didn't stop until he hit the highway. That night, he sent the photo to his friend Mick. Just one picture. No text. Then he threw the phone out the window somewhere near San Marcos and drove straight through the night back to Austin. He never spoke of it again. But 2 days later, Mick called him. "I think someone's messing with you, man," Mick said, his voice thin with nerves. "That picture? It changed. You know that house you sent me? That guy on the roof? Yeah, well, he's not on the roof anymore. He's on the ground." Looking at the camera, Darren's stomach dropped. "And I didn't do anything, bro. I just opened the photo again an hour ago, and now he's closer. And he's got this." Weird. Static cut the call. Darren tried to ring back. No answer. That was 3 days ago. Now every time Darren glances at his side mirror, he sees a shadow in the back seat. Only for a second, but it's there. And sometimes, in the soft curve of a windshield reflection or the blank face of a dark TV screen, he sees the smile. Wider each time. Waiting. Somewhere near Lockhart, that sign still leans against a rotting fence post. Scenic view gives, and someone keeps carving the words deeper. Baytown smelled like gasoline and heat. Not the kind of heat that bakes you from above, but the kind that steams off the concrete at 9 p.m., thick enough to blur the tail lights ahead. The Buc-ee's just off I-10 was pulsing with life families. Coming and going, kids with beaver nuggets, tourists snapping selfies under the cartoon beaver sign. It was the last place anyone would expect something to go wrong. And that's probably why it did. Rachel and Cody had stopped there for gas, beef jerky, and a bathroom break. They were heading toward a rented lakeside Airbnb in Livingston, trying to make it there before midnight. The GPS said 2 more hours, give or take. Cody had joked about how Buc-ee's was its own little Texas religion. Rachel had laughed. She always laughed when he said stuff like that. They seemed fine, normal, happy. It was their 6-month anniversary. They even bought matching Buc-ee's KEYCHAINS. Cody was driving. Rachel had her feet up on the dash, scrolling TikTok with the brightness all the way down. The roads had thinned out since they left Baytown's edge. A few trucks passed them, but otherwise it was just pine trees and pitch-black country. Then the first wrong turn. The GPS glitched. Just a blip at first, then it froze. Then it caught up and recalculated. Take the next left onto County Road 274. Cody squinted. That doesn't look right. It's what the map says, Rachel replied, chewing a piece of gum, half distracted. By her phone, he turned anyway. The road wasn't paved. Not gravel either. It was like cracked old blacktop that had been forgotten and patched badly over the years. No street lamps, no reflectors. Just trees pressing in too close. A ditch on either side. The kind of road where U-turns feel like trespassing. The further they drove, the quieter it got. The radio cut to static, then silence. Cody tried scanning. For a station, nothing. Rachel's signal vanished too. She said nothing, but the way she locked her phone and tucked it under her thigh said enough. Then came the car, not behind them at first, but ahead. Just a flash of headlights around a bend. It disappeared almost instantly. Someone else out here? Cody mumbled. Rachel sat up. I didn't think there were any houses down this road. There aren't. He slowed a bit. The headlights came again, this time behind them. But that didn't make sense. They hadn't passed a turnoff. Not even. A driveway. The lights stayed distant at first, then grew closer. Too close. No sound of an engine. No crunch of tires behind them. Just headlights. Way too bright. Way too steady. Rachel reached over and locked her door. Cody tapped the brakes. The lights did the same. Then he sped up. So did the car. They didn't see who was driving. Couldn't make out the shape of the vehicle. All they knew was that it kept the exact same distance no matter what Cody did. Speed up, slow down, it matched. Effortlessly. Cody took a sharp right without warning. It wasn't even a road. Just a rut between two lines of dead trees. He thought he'd lose them. But the lights followed. Not just followed. Copied. Every swerve. Every bump. Every second. Rachel was breathing fast now. What the hell is this, Cody? I don't know, he snapped, panic rising. I don't. What do you want me to do? Stop. Maybe it'll pass. I'm not stopping. She reached for her phone again. 1 bar. Enough to send a text. She typed fast, her fingers trembling. We think we're being followed. The reply never came. Seconds later, another notification. Buzz. Not a message. A sound file from an unknown number. Rachel played it. Just breathing. Long, wet, drawn-out inhales. Something between panting and gurgling. No words, no music. No background noise. Then a whisper. Too soft to make out. Cody didn't hear it. He was too focused on driving, heart hammering, mouth dry. But Rachel did. She replayed it. This time with the volume all the way up. The voice was her own, saying her name, but it wasn't from any recording she'd ever made. Just Rachel, whispered like someone calling her from inside her own throat. The file stopped. Her phone screen went black. Want to go back, she said, her voice shaking. We can't, Cody replied. There's no signal, no roads. I don't even know if we're on the map anymore. Then stop the car. He did. Gravel crunched beneath the tires as the car came to a halt. Silence. No crickets. No wind. Just the tick of the cooling engine. Headlights behind them were gone. No sign of the vehicle. No noise, no light. Just trees. Rachel was about to speak when something touched the rear windshield. Not hard, just a drag. Like fingers sliding slowly across the glass. Cody twisted around, trying to see. Nothing. Then a thud on the roof. He stepped out of the car. Flashlight app on, eyes wide. Stay inside, he told her. He circled the vehicle. No footprints. No animals. Nothing on the roof. Then the breathing came again. Not from her phone this time. From the woods. Loud. Wet. Closer. Cody pointed the phone's light into the trees. Nothing. Then he stepped forward. Rachel screamed. It wasn't because of what she saw. It was because Cody was gone. 1 step forward. That's all. She blinked. Gone. No sound. No scream. Just air. The flashlight fell onto the road. Spinning. She leapt out of the car, grabbed it, pointed it wildly into the woods. Nothing. Double quotes Cody. She cried out, and then his voice, but not from the woods. From behind her. Inside the car. She turned. He was in the driver's seat, but the door had never opened, his hands on the wheel. Eyes forward. Unblinking. She stepped toward him. Cody? He didn't move. His lips were blue. Eyes wide, breathing shallow, and his mouth open. Wide. Too wide. From it came the sound of tires on gravel, of her voice, of that strange, hungry breathing. All of it playing like a recording from the back of his throat. She backed away, stumbling. He turned toward her and smiled. Not Cody's smile. Something else wearing it. Something that had practiced it. That's when she ran. She didn't look back, didn't stop. Not when the woods closed in. Not when the trees seemed to shift behind her. She just ran. And somehow she made it out. Found it out. Road. Flagged down a passing trucker. Called the cops. The Rangers. The sheriff's department. They searched. No sign of Cody. No sign of the road she described. No. County Road 274 on any map. Just trees. And silence. The next day, she got another message. No number. No location. Just an audio file. More breathing. And Cody's voice saying, "I found the turn. Want me to come get you?" Then laughter. That wasn't his. The road was older than the town, older than the oaks and the ranch gates and the brittle rusted barbed wire that ran in lazy sways through mesquite and cactus scrub. Locals called it the Old Cattle Road, but no cattle had been driven down it. In 50 years, maybe more. The ruts were shallow now, overgrown in places, split by roots and time. Most people in Uvalde didn't even know where the road started, and fewer knew where it ended. It wasn't on any GPS, and if you asked around at the Stripes gas station off Main, folks would shake their heads or pretend they didn't hear. But Cole and Matt found it. They weren't kids. Cole had just turned 30, and Matt wasn't far behind. They'd come down to Uvalde from Austin after their father died, a week before the story started. The old man had been a ranch hand most of his life, retired early after a bull crushed his hip. He'd moved back to a trailer near the Frio River, drank too much, wrote letters no one ever read. The brothers hadn't seen him in 7 years, not since the last Christmas he called them strangers with his blood. They came to clean out his trailer, split the tools, burn the boxes of old Western paperbacks he kept in a trunk that reeked of mildew and mice piss. They found the map on the second day, tucked into a copy of True West with yellowed pages and a burn mark across the top corner. It wasn't a map exactly, more like a sketched-out route. Black ink on notepaper, the road twisting through hand-drawn scrub and low hills. There was no name on it, no compass rose, just a line ending at a square labeled fence with 2 faint words beneath it. Hear them, Matt thought it was some kind of joke, maybe one of the old man's rambling sketches. He used to go off about dreams he had, about voices in the mesquite trees, about gates that opened by themselves at night. Cole wasn't so sure. He remembered the stories too, the ones their dad told them when they were kids about the land past the cattle fences, about the bones that buzzed if you stood still long enough, about people who vanished just walking. Home. They should have burned the map with the rest of the junk. But they didn't. That night, after too many beers and not enough food, they loaded up Matt's Tacoma and drove west out of town, following the map like it was a treasure trail. They passed broken fence posts, sagging windmills, a water tank pocked with bullet holes. The land was flat at first, then it began to dip and rise in slow, aching folds, as if something deep underneath was pushing to the surface. The sun was bleeding out behind them by the time they found the gate, a crooked thing with no lock, just a rusty chain looped through a set of leaning posts. Beyond it, the road narrowed into something more like a path, barely wide enough for a single truck. There were no tire marks, just dried grass and brittle sticks. But the strangest thing was how quiet it was. No cicadas, no crickets, no wind. "Don't like this," Matt said, gripping the wheel tighter. Cole looked out at the fence. It was high, maybe 8 feet, with thick wooden planks weathered gray and dry as old bones. Something about the way it stood made it seem too perfect, too recent. "This fence looks new," he said. "No way. Look at the wood. Look at the ground. There's no dust on it. No rot. And those nails are shiny." Matt didn't answer. The air felt colder on the other side, like the fence was holding back something more than just land. Still, they got out. Cole walked up to the gate and touched the chain. It was warm. Not from the sun, which had been down for almost 20 minutes, but something else, like body heat. That's when they heard it. A voice. Low, almost childlike. Just one word. "Cole." He froze. Looked at Matt. You heard that?" He whispered. "No," Matt said too fast. Then it came again. Louder this time. "Matt." This time it came from behind the fence, low and hushed, like someone standing just behind the planks, whispering through the cracks. Matt took a step back. "It's a trick. Wind or something. Echoes." "There's no wind," Cole said. And there wasn't. The air was dead still. Something moved on the other side. A soft sliding sound like feet dragging in tall grass. Then came a knock, one hard thump on the fence. Just one. Nothing after. No call. No footsteps. No birds. Matt reached for the chain. "We're not doing this." But before he could pull it shut, the gate swung open on its own. It didn't creak. It didn't resist. It just opened, smooth and silent, and inside was only darkness. Not night, but something thicker. A kind of shadow that swallowed the starlight and stretched just far enough to blur the trees beyond. Cole stepped forward. He didn't know why. Something in that voice had called up something old inside him. Something like a memory that wasn't his. A place he'd never been but had always known. Matt followed. They walked into the land behind the fence. The road, if you could still call it that, curved left, then dropped into a shallow gully lined with dead grass and brittle cedar trunks. The ground sloped again, and they passed an old cattle trough half buried in red dirt. Everything looked faded. Not just worn, but faded, as if color itself had drained out. Then they saw the house. It was small, squat, with a slanted roof and a porch that leaned hard to the right. No lights, no car. Just the house, sitting like it had grown up from the dirt. Something about it made Cole stop walking. His chest tightened. He couldn't hear Matt's footsteps behind him anymore. He turned. Matt wasn't there. The road behind was empty. Cole called out once, twice. No answer. Then, softly, from the trees, he heard it again. Cole. But it wasn't Matt's voice. It was his father's. Cole ran back down the path, calling his brother's name, turning in circles, heart pounding like a drum. The darkness was thicker now, like oil in the air. He couldn't see the gate. Couldn't even tell where the path ended. Every tree looked the same. Every direction felt wrong. Then something grabbed his hand. Cold, small, human. He jerked back. There was no one there. Then he heard the crying. Soft, muffled, like a child. It was coming from the house. He didn't want to go back, but his legs moved on their own, step by step, toward the porch. Each footfall landed wrong, the ground too. Soft, too forgiving, like wet clay. He reached the steps. The crying stopped. The door opened. No creak, no slam. Just open. Inside was nothing but shadows. The smell hit him first, like old sweat and dirt and something sickly sweet. The floor was wood, warped and splintered. There was no furniture, no lights. Just a hallway that stretched too far, farther than the house should have allowed. He walked. At the end of the hall, a room glowed faintly red, like coals under ash. Inside, something sat on the floor, a shape, hunched and trembling. It looked up. It had Matt's face, but it wasn't Matt. Its eyes were black, not missing, but full of something writhing. It smiled, and its teeth weren't teeth. It spoke, but the voice was still their father's. "You heard me," it said. Cole turned to run. The hallway was gone, just the red room, just the shape, just the fence, and then everything was black. Truck was found 2 days later by a game warden, parked beside the open gate. Doors locked, lights off, keys on the dash. No footprints, no signs of a struggle. The trailer they'd cleaned out had burned to the ground. By morning. No one saw the brothers again, but sometimes, just before dawn, when the air goes cold and the crickets fall silent, people walking near that stretch of scrub say they hear names whispered from the brush. Not loud, not angry, just soft calling. He saw the first truck just past the chevron on the edge of Fort Stockton, right before the road split east and the sky bled orange from the tail end of a dry Texas dusk. The rig was matte black, clean like it had been driven out of a vacuum. No chrome, no decals, no license plate. Its brake lights blinked twice sharp, mechanical flashes, and then it started rolling. Brian McClellan was headed to Odessa, hauling nothing but an empty flatbed and the weight of a marriage that ended. 6 days ago, he didn't want to go back home. The house in Abilene was too full of silent things. Her perfume still lived in the cushions. The coffee pot still leaned toward the left like she always said. The dog still waited at the window like it didn't know she was never coming back. That's probably why he didn't think too hard before. Easing behind the black truck, watching its taillights blink in a rhythm too perfect to be normal. 2 seconds on, 2 off. Over and over like a heartbeat. Brian figured it was headed east toward I-20, so he let it guide him into the darker part of the road. But a minute later, another truck appeared. Same model, same matte black. This one merged from a side road and fell into line behind the Fendi. First, like it had been waiting. Brian blinked. No horn. No diesel grumble. Just quiet rubber against warm asphalt and that same blink on, off in time with the first. He passed a sign for Fort Lancaster Scenic Drive, and something in his gut told him he'd already gone too far. He eased off the gas, suddenly unsure if he'd missed the I-20 turnoff. The trucks kept moving, silent and steady, like they were wired to a buried cable beneath the road. The second one's lights blinked too, and now there were 4 red dots, pulsing in perfect harmony. Brian tried to pull to the side and check his GPS, but the moment he slowed down, both trucks did too, perfectly, simultaneously. The lead truck's brake lights brightened just a touch, like it was warning him. The second truck behind him closed the gap tighter. "All right," he muttered, a nervous smile cracking his sun-dried face. This some kind of synchronized delivery crew or what? He couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't normal trucks. They didn't weave, didn't swerve for potholes, didn't adjust for elevation or curve. Just a steady glide over the West Texas highway, deeper into brush and scrub and a sky that had started turning purple with stars. His GPS had lost signal 5 miles back. Then came the third truck. It didn't come from the front or the back. It came from the side, from somewhere it shouldn't have fit. Brian swore he hadn't seen a road there, just some low brush and a rusted fence. But there it was, slipping into the convoy like a fish joining a school. Now he was sandwiched between 3 matte black 18-wheelers. The third truck fell in beside him, just out of view, cruising in the left lane at the exact same speed. Brian's throat dried. He tried his radio, static. Tried his horn. Nothing but his own echo. He flipped his high beams on and off, no reaction. The trucks didn't flash back. They didn't honk. They didn't do anything except blink those damn red lights, like they were sending a message in Morse code. On, off, on, off. Each one perfectly spaced. Perfectly timed. He finally did what any sane man would do. He stopped. Not slammed the brakes, just slowed gently, foot easing off the gas, blinking his hazards, letting the engine roll him to a stop. The trucks reacted instantly. The one behind him stopped. The one in front halted. The one beside him matched his crawl to a stop until they were all still. Brian's headlights revealed nothing but brush and endless asphalt. The night air was thick now, weirdly still. Not a cricket chirping or a breeze rustling. His phone was still dead. No signal. The dashboard clock flickered, then froze. 9:13 p.m. He waited. Nothing. He stepped out of the cab. One boot hitting gravel, the other scuffing dirt. The air was cold, sharp wrong. He walked to the front of his truck and squinted at the lead trailer. It had no branding, no bolts, no locks, no handles. Just black steel and the faintest reflection of himself in the polished back. He called. "Out, hey, anyone inside?" No answer. He tried knocking. It didn't sound like metal. It didn't echo. It was like knocking on rubber-wrapped bone. He turned to the side truck. Its driver window was dark, not tinted, empty. Like staring into space. The side mirror reflected nothing, not the road, not the moon, not Brian. Then the lead truck's brake lights blinked faster. On, dash off, dash on, dash off, dash on, dash off, all three at once. His truck shut off. The engine, the lights, the dash all gone. He turned back to his cab, heart pounding now, hand shaking as he reached for the door handle. But the door was locked. He hadn't locked it behind him. The back truck hissed, not like a brake release, like breathing. He turned back around and froze. The side truck had moved closer, barely a foot of space between it and him. He hadn't heard it move. It didn't make a sound. The smell hit him, acrid, hot and ancient. Not fuel, not rubber. Something that reminded him of meat left too long in the sun. Then the front truck did something it hadn't done before. The back doors opened. No noise. Just a slow split down the middle, revealing a blackness so deep it hurt his eyes to stare into it. The inside wasn't just dark, it was empty, vacuum empty, and something was moving in it. Not out in. Like the air itself was being pulled. Slowly, hungrily. Brian stepped back. The ground beneath him cracked. He looked down and realized the road wasn't asphalt anymore. It was something else. It shimmered slightly, like oil. His boot prints were already fading, being swallowed into it. The brush was gone. The stars had vanished. Just him, his rig, and three silent trucks blinking in time, like a countdown to something ancient and patient. He ran to the side truck, slammed a fist on the door. "Let me in, please." No response. He tried the passenger side. Same. Then the blinking stopped. All three brake lights dash off. Total black. The road disappeared beneath him, and he was falling. Not fast. Not like gravity. He was sinking, as if being digested by the road itself. He screamed, but no sound came out. His mouth moved, his lungs worked, but nothing. He clawed upward, but the asphalt was soft now, warm and flexing like skin. The last thing he saw was his own truck, headlights dimming slowly as it was absorbed into the same surface. Then the truck started moving again. Without him, down the same road. Brake lights blinking. On, off, somewhere in Fort Stockton. Drivers still say they've seen the convoy. Always three trucks. Always blinking in rhythm. Sometimes a fourth tries to catch up, but it never comes back. The sign wasn't new. It leaned at a crooked angle, the paint sun-bleached and peeling at the edges. "No access," it warned in blocky red letters, nailed to a rusted iron pole that stuck up like a broken finger from the dry Amarillo soil. Most drivers would have missed it or ignored it, tucked just beyond the brush on the right side of the highway where exit 327 should have been. No lights, no gas station, no food. Just a dirt path curling off the shoulder and disappearing into flat nothingness. But Kara saw it. She wasn't the type to notice things. Or maybe she used to be. Before her mother died last spring, Kara noticed everything sunsets. Songs on the radio, whether her gas cap was tight. But since the funeral, since her father started going quiet and the house turned into a museum of unopened mail and microwave dinners, she'd learned to slip into auto mode. The world blurred past her like scenery on a train. Until that sign, she was driving west alone on her way to a cousin's house outside Clovis, a weekend away from grief. She hadn't packed much, just a gym bag with 2 changes of clothes and a half-eaten pack of Red Vine's riding shotgun. Her phone sat on the console with no signal, flickering between searching and SOS. The sun was going down behind her, casting shadows that stretched across the road like reaching arms. That's when she saw the exit, and the sign, and the tiny, flickering notion in her brain that whispered, "What if there's something back there no one else ever saw?" She hit the brakes without thinking, her tires skidding slightly as she veered off the shoulder and onto the unmarked dirt path. The Camry bounced and rattled, the dry grass brushing against the undercarriage like fingers tapping for entry. She drove only a quarter mile before the land swallowed the road whole. There wasn't a cul-de-sac, no parking area, just a clearing. The grass stopped, and so did she. The car idled. The air grew still. Cicadas buzzed somewhere behind the horizon. Kara stepped out, leaving the door open, keys still in the ignition. The radio mumbled softly some FM station out of Lubbock warbling an old country ballad. She slipped her feet out of her sneakers and left them on the seat, toes curling against the dry, cracked soil. It felt warm, warmer than it should have, like sun-baked metal, but the sun was almost gone. The sky was a bruised purple bleeding into darkness. She didn't notice that the sound of the engine faded behind her, that the song died mid-verse, that the dirt road she came down was no longer there. She walked forward, one step, then another. She had the strange sensation of not moving, like walking on a treadmill while the world stretched instead of herself. In the distance, low hills rose up like shoulders, but they weren't there a second ago. Something about the air shifted. It tasted sweet, rotting apples and wet paper. Something whispered not words, but the feeling of being spoken to. The air brushing inside her ears. She turned to look behind her. Nothing. No car. No path. Just an endless plain under the dying sky. Her breath hitched. Her heart, until now steady, stumbled over itself. She called out, "Hello?" No echo. Just the soft hum of silence pressing against her chest. Kara ran. She didn't know where, just away. Her bare feet thudded against the hard soil. She tripped on something smooth, hit the ground hard. When she turned to look, it wasn't a rock. It was a piece of road, asphalt, a jagged slab, edges broken like a torn tooth, covered in faint tire marks. She backed away from it slowly and saw others. Dozens. Pieces of roads, shattered like glass, scattered across the earth like a graveyard of forgotten highways. Each one different, some marked with faint yellow lines, others with arrow signs, some with tire rubber melted into them like fossilized screams. The further she looked, the more she realized there were other things, too. A rusted mailbox, a gas station sign with no letters, a child's backpack, all half buried in the dirt, all placed like offerings. Her head spun. The sky was too low now, the purple giving way to a thick amber fog that crawled toward her like smoke underwater. The ground shuddered slightly, and a shape tall, thin, wrong unfolded itself from the horizon. It had no face. Or maybe it had too many. Its skin looked like asphalt bubbling in summer heat. Where legs should be, long limbs stretched and bent in angles her brain refused to process. It didn't move quickly, but each step it took pressed a kind of gravity. Into the world-bending light, muting sound. She couldn't scream, couldn't cry, just run. She sprinted across the field of broken highways and forgotten exits, ducking past a telephone pole with no wires, hurtling over a burned-out bus stop bench. Her lungs burned, her feet bled. But behind her, it walked. Never running, never stopping. Just moving, dragging the air with it. Kara saw something ahead. A shape, rectangular. Familiar. Her car. It sat in the clearing again, quiet, engine off, door still open. Shoes in the seat. She sprinted faster, hope blooming like fire in her chest. She leapt for the door and slammed into nothing. The car shimmered, a heat mirage made of memory, vanishing like smoke the second she touched it. She collapsed, scraping her knees, dirt grinding into her skin. The creature behind her stopped, close. Now that she didn't turn, didn't need to dot, it leaned forward dot and spoke. But not with sound dot, with memory dot. Her mother's voice filled her skull. Soft, sweet, begging. Kara, honey, it's time to come home. Don't you want to see me again? She turned dot. It wasn't her mother. It never was, but she followed the voice, and the clearing emptied, back on the highway. A state trooper noticed the car a few hours later. The Camry sat quietly off the shoulder. Headlights off, engine idling, door open, shoes in the seat. No sign of the driver. He found no tracks. No phone dot, just a faint smell in the air, something sweet and rotting, and a scrap of paper stuck under the windshield wiper. It looked old, curled at the edges. Written in shaky pencil, don't exit dot, it remembers you. The dashcam footage was uploaded automatically to the cloud at 11:58 p.m. on July 3rd. The file was titled deadmancurve_7.mp4. No one uploaded it manually. No one had access to the van's cloud credentials except two people, Jeremy and his cousin Landon, and they never made it back to Jasper. Jeremy had borrowed the white Dodge Ram Premaster for the weekend. It was his mom's used for her cleaning business, but she didn't mind as long as he brought it back clean. They were headed to Lake Sam Rayburn with a tent, a cooler of cheap beer, 2 lawn chairs, and Landon's brand new camcorder. They planned to shoot a horror short called Dead Man's Curve because Jasper had one. Not the urban legend kind either. The real thing. A sickle-shaped bend in the Pine Dark Road east of town near an old washed-out bridge that the county had fenced off after too many fatal wrecks. The plan was stupid but simple. Park the van right on the bend. Shoot a scene where Landon walks off into the woods alone, do some Blair Witch-style night shots with a flashlight. Jeremy laughed when Landon suggested they splice in some static and distorted humming to make it look haunted. They didn't have to fake it. The van's GPS pinged its last known location at 11:41 p.m., just a quarter mile from the bend. After that, it went dark. No pings, no cellular signal, no engine logs, like it had shut itself off mid-transmission. But the dashcam kept running. That's what made the file so strange. When Jeremy's mom saw the van still missing the next morning, she called them both. No answer. The police found no skid marks on the road. No sign of a wreck. Just an empty stretch of asphalt near a barrier that had been broken clean through, like something massive had plowed right through it without stopping. The lake was still. No drag marks, no broken branches, no van in the water, no tire tracks in the mud. Just the lingering smell of hot metal and ... something else. Sweet, almost sickly, like burned honeysuckle. A week later, the footage went live. The cloud service uploaded it as part of an automatic sync. The file was 47 minutes long. The first 10 minutes were dark nothing but trees, road, the occasional thump of a pine cone on the windshield. Then the static began. It wasn't your regular TV static either. It looked ... wet. There was motion, but not the kind you could describe. It shimmered and twitched like a swarm of fish under ice. The camera lens would twitch occasionally, catching brief flashes of light, not reflections. More like ... pulses, a faint red glow like brake lights seen through fog. Except there was no fog, and no lights. At 11:49 p.m., the humming started. It was faint at first, barely there, a low droning sound somewhere between a cello and a dial tone. It rose and fell like it was breathing. People online said it had a pattern. They ran spectrograms on it, found strange symmetrical peaks. Others said they heard words buried inside it, like whispers layered deep beneath the drone. Not English. Not any language most could place. At 12:03 a.m., something moved across the lens, only for a second. A shape, pale and long, no arms, no legs, just a smudge of light like a face pressed against glass. The video warped. The trees seemed to stretch sideways. The windshield cracked. Not literally, just on the recording. But the van was found days later with spiderweb fractures in the same shape, like something had pressed its face there from the outside. At 12:09 a.m., Jeremy's voice came through, cracked, hoarse, repeating the same thing, "I'm not in here. I'm not in here. I'm not in here," over and over, until it wasn't his voice anymore, until it sounded like a woman. Then a child. Then nothing. No one could agree what happened after that. The last 10 minutes of the video were pure static. Again, but it wasn't silent. People who listened with headphones said they could hear scraping metal on metal like a key being dragged along the van side. Some swore they heard knocking, rhythmic, like someone trying to get out. Others said it was Morse code, an SOS from the inside. The file ends with a hard, sharp tone. A single high-pitched beep that leaves your ears ringing. Tech forums warned people not to play it all the way through. One guy from Beaumont claimed his screen cracked the moment it ended. Others said they started dreaming of the van, sitting in it, watching the bend appear over and over, never able to stop the wheel, never able to open the door, just turning again. And again, and again. Jasper PD quietly removed the footage from public view, citing distress caused to the families. But it's out there, ripped, mirrored, reposted in low quality. Every version degraded a little more. Every version slightly different. Someone anonymously uploaded a cleaned version last month, sharpened, enhanced, audio separated into channels. In that version, at minute 39 to 47, right before the last wave of static swallows the feed, you can see something reflected in the rearview mirror. It's not Jeremy. It's not Landon. It has no face. Just two black holes where eyes should be and a mouth stretched impossibly wide. And the worst part? The van's engine was found 3 counties over. Still warm. Still ticking. No chassis. Number. Frame. Just the engine. Sitting in the middle of a clearing in the big thicket, surrounded by shoe prints that all pointed inward. And in the dirt? Written in neat, deliberate lines, someone had etched one word. Again. He came from Colorado, skinny, sunburned, and a little too eager. The kind of man who thought maps were for quitters and that ghost town was just another word for forgotten beauty. His name was Emery Price, 28, solo traveler, chasing stories for his half-read blog and a half-lost soul. He wore a sweat-stained canvas hat, a GoPro clipped to his shoulder strap, and boots that had eaten more dust than leather. When he passed through Stephenville and asked the barmaid at Taproom 281 about Hiko, she'd laughed. Not playfully, nervously. "You mean old Hiko?" she asked, drying a glass slower than she needed to. He nodded, flipping open his spiral-bound journal and tapping a page. Abandoned in the 30s. Got a few structures still standing, according to county records. South of the river bend. No formal trail. Locals call it dead land. The barmaid's smile faded. Ain't just the land. That's dead out there. He grinned like someone who hadn't lived long enough to learn respect. What else is? She hesitated, looked at the other patrons. One man near the jukebox made the sign of the cross. You looking for trouble, you'll find it faster than shelter. And if you hear singing, turn around. Emery wrote that part down, Singing. Got it. Anything else? Yeah, she said. Don't trust the buildings. Don't go past the church. And don't stop walking, even if something calls your name. He left the next morning, parked his beat-up Subaru near the old bridge that once led to town before the flood wiped out the road. GPS was useless. Cell signal vanished before noon. He followed a dry wash between the cedar trees, crossing through. Barbed wire so old the rust looked like blood crusted on bone. By midday, he found the sign, bent, splintered, half-eaten by vines. HICO, Est, 1873, rebuilt never. It wasn't a ghost town like the ones in westerns. All tidy boardwalks and saloon swing doors. Hiko had rotted into the earth like a wound left untended. Roofs collapsed in on themselves. Stone chimneys stood like broken teeth. And one main road cut through the center like a scar that had scabbed over wrong. Emery's boots left prints in the thin crust of dirt. He recorded everything, narrating into his phone. No wind, no bird song, just stillness. Like the world hit pause out here. The first strange thing wasn't the buildings, it was the silence. The kind that isn't just quiet, but waiting. Every creak of wood or pop of heat-shrunk stone echoed too long, like the town was listening. He found a post office with mail. Still inside. Postmarked 1929. All addressed to names that hadn't been mentioned in decades. The sun dipped behind the dead trees and Emery should have left then. Should have followed his own prints back to the wash. But curiosity is a vice, with no antidote. He lit a lantern and pressed on, deeper into the center of the town. He found the church by accident. Whitewashed wood faded to gray, bell tower leaning like a drunk with a secret. He didn't notice at first, but his footprints stopped following him. He spun around. Dirt undisturbed, smooth, no indentations. Behind him, he knelt down, touched where his heel should have landed. The earth was packed hard, like it hadn't been touched in years. He checked his phone. Battery dead. Not drained, dead. Like it had never been charged. His GoPro blinked. Then went black. And then came the singing. It wasn't words. Not really. Just soft hums. Notes strung together like lullabies from a mother who'd never met her child. Female, he thought, far away. From behind the church. Emery, against every warning, followed it. Behind the church was a small cemetery, wrought iron fence twisted in. Some places like it had tried to hold something in, not out. The gravestones were blank, every one. Dozens of them. Different shapes, sizes, ages, all worn smooth like they'd been scrubbed of memory. The singing grew louder. He stepped through the gate and immediately stumbled forward. The air thickened like syrup. His limbs slowed, breath came shallow. The shadows moved wrong, not stretching away from the light, but toward it, crawling like insects drawn to heat. The song stopped. A whisper came instead, dry as bone dust. Emery. He froze. That voice. It was his mother's. But she'd been dead 3 years. Cancer. He hadn't heard her say his name since the week she couldn't speak anymore. Come in, sweetheart, the voice coaxed. You've been gone so long. He backed away, stumbled, and his boot hit a cracked headstone. He fell hard, hand catching the edge of a grave, but it wasn't stone beneath his fingers. It was soft, pliable. Skin. He looked down and saw the grave opening. Not dug, but peeling. Like the ground had a wound and it was splitting open to show raw meat and something worse beneath. He ran, back through the fence, down the church steps. His breath caught like it didn't belong in his lungs anymore. Past the post office, past the general store. The buildings leaned closer now, their windows filled with something behind the glass. Not reflections, not people, but expressions. like the town had watched him from the start and was finally blinking. He found the edge of town where the sign had been, "Gone now, just trees," and the sound of footsteps behind him. He turned out no one there, but the footprints were in front of him now, as if someone else had taken over the journey. His tracks no longer matched his pace. They veered left, toward the well near the old hotel. He stopped, but his steps kept going. The earth pulled his legs forward like the ground had decided where he would go. The humming returned, but now it came from inside his ears, or maybe his bones. A resonant, almost metallic vibration, like something turning slowly beneath the town. When he reached the well, he found his reflection in the water, except it wasn't him, not quite. Smile was too wide, the eyes too still. The last thing he wrote, found later by a park ranger who didn't remember how he got the journal, read, "There are people in the ground. They're not buried. They're waiting, and they remember your name." No one ever found Emery, just his Subaru, and the prints that led into HICO. No prints ever came out. The man showed up around lunchtime, just before the sun took its meanest swing at the dry little town of Sabinal. Dust blew off the asphalt in swirling streaks, and the air shimmered above the blacktop like something half alive, stretching and twitching and trying to lift off. He was driving a rental car, red, spotless, too clean for the county. The kind of rental you see in airport parking lots, not parked under a gas station, awning on the edge of a town that barely had more than one working streetlight. He walked into the Texaco off Highway 90, wiping sweat from his brow with the hem of his shirt. Tall, maybe mid-30s, khakis and a polo shirt. Expensive hiking boots that hadn't kicked up a single speck of Sabinal's stubborn dirt. He was holding a printed map, not even a phone, and that made old Martha behind the register look at him twice. Folks didn't use maps anymore. That alone should have been warning enough. "Excuse me," he said, with a soft, rehearsed friendliness of someone who expected good service. "I'm trying to get to Lost Loma Ranch. Heard it's out near a ghost town. My GPS isn't pulling anything up. Can you point me in the right direction?" Martha squinted at him. She didn't know about any Lost Loma Ranch, but she also didn't like that he said ghost town like it was something to smile about. Around here, ghost towns weren't romantic. There were places the living had learned to stop visiting. Before she could say anything, a man at the corner table stirred. That was Roy. Been sitting there since 10 a.m., nursing a single Dr. Pepper and thumbing through a newspaper from last week. Most of his teeth were gone, but he still had the voice for stories. "You're looking for County Road 13, Roy said. Without lifting his eyes, the tourist perked up. "You know it?" Roy did look at him then, one eye drooping slightly from a stroke 10 years back, the other squinting like he was staring through a foggy window into the past. "Yeah, I know it." Martha gave Roy a sharp look and shook her head slow, but Roy didn't stop. "Take Farm Road 1297 north for about 4 miles, Roy said. "You'll see a break in the fence, barbed wire pulled back, tire tracks real faint. That's your County Road 13. Dirt road now. Used to be paved, but that was back when people still had reason to go down it." The tourist smiled wide. "Thanks. Thought I was going crazy. Wasn't even on Google." Roy nodded. "Ain't been used in 50 years. Maybe more." Something in his voice should have stopped the man cold, but it didn't. The tourist thanked them, stepped back into the heat, and drove off, dust kicking up behind the red sedan like a fire trail. That was the last time anyone in Sabinal saw him in the flesh. Roy didn't say another word. Martha lit a cigarette and stared out the window until the red speck disappeared into the shimmer. The man, his name was David. Not that it mattered now, found the turnoff just like Roy said. The break in the fence, the dirt road with the tire ruts sunken deep and dry. The remains of a rusted gate twisted open like something had burst out of it long ago. There were no signs. No houses, just mesquite trees and scrub brush and buzzards, flying lazy circles in the sky. He took the road slow, thinking maybe the ranch was some kind of old tourist spot. A place where people set up abandoned mining gear and let the cacti reclaim the land. He liked places like that, thought they had texture. Thought it made for good photography. The road narrowed and the trees grew taller, denser. The air lost its shimmer and grew still. It wasn't cooler, just heavier. Like there was weight pressing down from the sky. He drove for 10 minutes, then 15. His phone lost signal. The dirt road dipped and twisted through the brush like it had no destination at all. Then the car stalled. Just like that. No noise, no warning. The engine stopped with a cough, dashboard flickered, and the air conditioning went dead. David cursed, turned the key. Nothing. Tried again. The engine groaned, sputtered, and fell silent. He checked the fuel, half a tank. He opened the door. The air outside didn't feel right. There was no wind, no birds, not even the thrum of insects. Just heat and stillness. The silence didn't feel natural, it felt staged. He popped the hood. Nothing obvious. Then he noticed something in the dust just beyond the front of the car. Footprints. Bare feet. Small. Like a child's. They walked toward the car from the brush and stopped. Didn't go around, didn't retreat. Just stopped dead in the dirt. David stared, felt the breath catch in his throat. Then he laughed nervously, shook it off. Maybe someone else had come through recently. Maybe there was a kid out here helping with cattle. But no cattlemen brought kids out here. Not anymore. And there hadn't been cattle out this way since the 50s. He snapped a picture with his camera. Checked the screen. But the photo was warped. The colors too dark. The shadows twisted in the wrong direction, like they bent away from something just outside the frame. He tried again, same thing. And now there was something behind the footprints in the dust. A smear, like someone had been dragged. He lowered the camera. There was no smear in the dirt now. No footprints. Just flat, undisturbed dust. David backed away, heart pounding. He got back in the car, locked the doors out of instinct. Tried the ignition again. Click. Silence. And then, somewhere behind the trees, he heard humming. A child's voice, soft, off-key, singing something that sounded like a lullaby. He rolled up the windows. The humming grew louder, closer. He pressed his phone's power button. Black screen. He checked his camera again. All the photos were gone. Replaced by a single image. A house. Old, wooden, collapsed on one side. Windows dark. A figure standing in the doorway. His hand shook as he zoomed in. The figure smiled. It was him. But the eyes were wrong. He dropped the camera and started the car one last time. It turned over. Just barely. He hit the gas, spun the wheels, and tore back down the road, praying the dirt held together long enough to get him back to the break in the fence. Trees slapped the sides of the car, the branches clawing like fingers. The sun had vanished behind thick gray clouds, and the air had turned cold, like a storm was closing in. He didn't look in the rearview mirror. Not once. He reached the brake, skidded onto Farm Road 1297, and drove straight to the Texaco, engine smoking, face white as chalk. But that's not how the story ends. That's just how we wished it ended. Truth is, he never came back. Not to the Texaco. Not to the highway. Not to anywhere. A week later, a search party went down County Road 13. The break in the fence was still there. The road still ran a few miles in, but there was no car. No tire tracks, and the road after about half a mile just stopped, not faded. Not overgrown. Stopped. As if the earth had swallowed the rest of it whole. The only thing they found was a camera. It was resting in the middle of the dirt, upright, lens cap off, There were no photos on it, just one audio file. Child's voice humming softly, and then whispering, just once, right before the static kicked in. You shouldn't have asked. Sabinal doesn't mention County Road 13 anymore. Not out loud, and if you stop in town and ask for directions, don't be surprised if no one answers. They're not being rude. They're trying to keep you alive. The night had a heaviness to it, the kind that pressed down on your shoulders like wet wool and made the air taste like copper. Kyla had been driving for hours, longer than she'd planned, after getting stuck behind a flip-to cattle truck on Route 183. She didn't like driving at night, hated it, really, but her little sister's graduation party in Brownwood had run long, and now she was halfway to nowhere, surrounded by pine and shadows. Her Tesla's sleek dashboard glowed faint blue, the navigation screen like an obedient eye always watching. She hadn't spoken aloud, hadn't touched the screen either when the message popped up. Alternate route available. Save 27 minutes? The voice was female, crisp, smoother than the Siri knockoff she remembered from before the last software update. Kyla blinked. That's weird, she murmured. She hadn't connected her phone. No cellular signal. No Wi-Fi. Nothing. The road. Ahead was quiet, lined with tall trees. East Texas woods, black and endless. She tapped accept without thinking, eyes already stinging from fatigue. The car slowed slightly on its own, blinked the turn signal right, and veered gently onto a narrow asphalt road she'd never seen before. There was no signpost, no mile marker, just a cracked but freshly swept road, the kind that shouldn't still be in use, winding like a black tongue into thicker woods. The voice came again, proceed for 19 miles. Kyla frowned. What's this road called? She asked, more to herself than anything. The screen showed nothing. No name, no towns. Just the blue line stretching into the forest like a vein. She reached for her phone. Still no signal. No GPS. She tried to remember if the car had local maps installed. She hadn't driven this model enough to know its quirks. Maybe it had some cached route. That's what she told herself. Some local backroad shortcut. At mile 3, she saw the deer. At least she thought it was a deer. Pale, standing still on the side of the road, its body long and thin like a stretched photograph. Its legs were too straight, its neck too stiff. But its eyes, they didn't reflect her headlights. They drank them. She braked slightly, watching it from the corner of her eye, but it never moved. Just stood in the ditch like a broken garden statue. After it passed out of view, she exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. A second voice, one not from the car, whispered something behind her seat. She turned around fast, heart thumping like a hammer. Nothing there. She laughed. A sharp little sound, trying to shake the tension out of her shoulders. Jesus. Kyla, you need sleep. The dashboard screen flickered. Once, then again. The map glitched. The road blinked out, then returned. The blue route line throbbed, actually pulsed, like it had a heartbeat. At mile 6, she passed a gas station, or the ruins of one. An old Sinclair, green dinosaur sign rusted and leaning. The pumps were gutted. No lights, no windows. A dust caked. Cooler sat outside with the door hanging open, but it was the phone booth that got her. There was someone inside it. A man, shirtless, his back covered in something black. A pattern? A wound? A growth? He didn't move, didn't turn. She kept driving. The forest pressed closer. The road narrowed. Her high beams lit up twisted limbs that curled over the road like ribs in a chest cavity. The night was deeper here, like it hadn't ended for centuries. At mile 10, the voice returned. Alternate route updated. Recalculating. The car slowed again, as if it knew something she didn't. Kyla's palms were slick on the wheel. She pressed the accelerator manually. Nothing happened. The car was driving itself. Okay, no. We're done, she said aloud, trying to override the system. The screen didn't respond. The steering wheel didn't unlock. Panic prickled up her spine like ice water. Stop the car, she commanded. Nothing. She reached for the door handle. It clicked, but didn't open. The voice said again, softer this time. Alternate route calculated. The road dipped into a clearing where fog clung low and yellow like old soup. The trees here were dead, not fallen, not rotting, just wrong. She could see their bark twitching. Her lights flickered. Shapes moved in the fog, thin and gliding, not walking so much as floating. Kyla's pulse thundered. This is a glitch. This is a prank. Tesla's gonna get sued for this, she whispered. Though the words sounded dumb even to her dot at mile 13, the car stopped. The screen went black. The interior lights died. Everything, sound, power, light, gone. Then, something began tapping on the window's dot. She froze. The tap was soft at first. Then another, from the passenger side. Then another, behind her. No shapes in the mirrors. No sound but that maddening, polite tapping. Like knuckles. Like nails. She screamed, slammed her fists against the dashboard. Let me out. The car didn't budge. She turned in her seat, staring into the dark back seat, waiting for something to reach out from it. Nothing did. Then her headlights came back on. Just popped on. In front of her was a sign. Not a real one. Not on posts. It was a wooden placard suspended by wires from the trees, dangling in the middle of the road. Welcome back. Her mouth went dry. The car began to move again. She passed the same Sinclair station. The man in the phone booth was facing her now. His mouth was open too wide. Something black leaked from his lips. The deer stood at the same ditch, only now there were 3 of them, all staring. Still wrong, she screamed. The road curved. The trees opened. She emerged onto the same road she'd started from. Or she thought she had. The town wasn't there. No signs. No exit numbers. No lights, just more road, more forest, more dark. Her car chimed once. Proceed for 19 miles. She slammed on the brakes. The car didn't stop. The voice added, route confirmed. Final destination, home. No, she cried. I don't live here. I'm not going that way. But the road stretched on. She looked in her rearview mirror. There was no road behind her, only trees. Growing. She began to sob. The screen flickered. A new message. You are now offline. Please enjoy the drive. And the road kept going. The night got thicker. And the tapping started again. The air off I-10 just west of Van Horn was so dry it felt like it sucked the sound out of the world. Tires whispered against the cracked asphalt, and dust kicked up in long, lazy swirls across the empty highway. At 2:14 in the morning, nothing. Should have been open, and nobody sane should have been driving, especially not a man like Ellis Bragg, tired, worn from 3 straight days on the road, and haunted by things he refused to name. Ellis had passed through El Paso 3 hours earlier, ignoring every open motel and gas station. He wasn't running from anything, exactly. It was more like he couldn't stop. He told himself he'd rest once he reached San Antonio, but part of him already knew he wouldn't make it. There was something about the night, something stretching, long and black across the desert like a ribbon of oil that pulled at him harder than sleep or safety ever could. The rest stop appeared suddenly, tucked behind a thicket of twisted mesquite trees and brittle scrub. One flickering sign, rest area, buzzed in sickly green over a squat brick building that looked abandoned from the road. But the lot was empty. and his bladder was full, and the need for cold water scraped the back of his throat like sandpaper. He pulled in slow, his headlights sweeping across the vending machines lined up in front of the building like crooked teeth. Most were dark, but two still blinked faintly, a soda machine with a cracked display and a snack dispenser missing its top row. Ellis shut off the engine and stepped out into the cool desert night. The door creaked. The dome light above his head flickered and then went dark. He left it open anyway. The silence hit hard, like stepping into a vacuum. No crickets, no wind. Just the faint, rhythmic tick of his cooling engine and the dying buzz of the vending sign. He walked stiff-legged to the machines, fed in a wrinkled dollar, and watched it get spit back twice before it finally caught. The Coke can clattered down with an echo that seemed too loud. It rolled in the tray, but he didn't reach for it. He was looking at the building. More specifically, at the bathroom door, heavy steel, painted brown once but faded to a sickly orange, with a cracked handicap symbol and a broken light above. It was open just a hair, just enough to see that the light inside still worked. A pale yellow glow spilled out, pooling at the bottom of the door like diluted blood. Ellis stepped forward without thinking, Coke and forgotten. Something about that cracked door nagged at him. Not curiosity, something deeper, like recognition. Like he'd seen that exact frame and glow in a dream once. Or maybe in the kind of memory you don't realize you've buried until it starts to rot. He pushed it open. The hinges didn't squeal. They didn't move at all. The door slid open like it was on oiled tracks, smooth and silent. Inside it smelled of bleach and old urine, but not strongly. Like someone had cleaned it obsessively years ago. The tile was old, 70s green, cracked, in a grid of fine lines like the skin of a dry riverbed. One sink, one mirror. Two stalls, both closed. The light overhead buzzed faintly. He stepped in. The door didn't slam. It clicked. He turned, startled. The handle jiggled, locked. There was no lock on the outside, but there it was, a thick bolt protruding from the steel into the frame like a deadbolt on a jail cell. Ellis cursed it under his breath and rattled it again. No give. The air inside thickened. Not warmer, but heavier. As if the tile itself had exhaled something, stale and damp, into the room. He turned to the stalls, still closed. The first one had feet under it, sneakers. Old, white, scuffed, not moving. Ellis stared. "Hey," he said, his voice sounding wrong. In the acoustics, as if it were too loud and too far away at the same time. "You all right in there?" Nothing. Just silence. And then a drip. It came from the sink. Not from the faucet, but the drain. A single dark bead rolled up from inside, thick and red, and popped like a bubble. Another followed it. And another. Ellis took a step back toward the door and tried the handle again. Still locked. The sneakers hadn't moved, but the gap under the stall was wider now. It had been maybe 3 inches. Now it was closer to 6. Ellis blinked. "Listen," he said louder. "If this is a prank, I'm not in the mood." A rustle. The sneakers slid an inch toward the front of the stall. Not stepped. Slid. Like something was pulling them forward from inside, like a puppet. Then they tilted outward. Not stepped. Again, but fallen, as if the feet had no legs in them at all. Just bone and rubber and old skin. The light flickered. When it came back, the shoes were gone. The stall door was still closed. The mirror behind him cracked, slow and deliberate. A single line forming across the glass like a cut opening on skin. The light flickered again, this time off for 3 full seconds. When it came back, the second stall door was open. Something stood inside. Not tall, not short, but wrong. Its limbs hung too loosely, its neck bent like there was nothing in it, but it stood. And it breathed. Ellis stumbled back against the sink. The mirror cracked again, spider webbing. He turned to face it. Just as the thing stepped forward, it didn't walk. It shivered forward, a movement like wind through hanging sheets or shadow under a heat lamp. But it made a sound, a low, wet scrape, like dragging a mop full of meat across stone. Its face had no shape, just the hint of one. Features pushed out from under translucent skin as if wrapped in a plastic veil. And its mouth, the only clear feature, was open, wide. Too wide. It whispered, "Ellis." He screamed and hurled his shoulder into the bathroom door. It didn't move. The lights shut off. He slammed again and again as cold breath washed across his back. The door stayed shut. And then nothing. When the lights flickered back, the door was wide open. The parking lot was empty. No car, no Coke can, no footprints. He stepped outside, but it wasn't outside. It looked like the same parking lot. The vending machines, the scrub, but the stars were wrong. The sky was too close, like a painted ceiling overhead. The horizon was just gone. A circle of desert and sky around him like a stage set. He turned. The rest stop was gone. No building. Just a rusted bathroom door, freestanding in the middle of nothing. It closed behind him on its own. He ran in every direction, but the rest stop circle never changed. No road, no sound, just the vending machines. One of them blinked now, brighter than before. And inside, behind the cracked glass, was a pair of white sneakers, tucked neatly next to a folded jacket, Ellis's jacket. The machine HUMMED. Inside the tray was a single can, ice cold, unlabeled. It hissed open on its own. The gas station sat 4 miles off Highway 82, just east of Nocona, Texas. Locals used to call it the last light because it was the final stop before 20 desolate miles of nothing, just open prairie, mesquite, and the ghost wind that curled through the fence posts like it was searching for something. It had been closed since 2007 after the owner, Hal Corman, hung himself in the garage with a worn-out serpentine belt. Ever since, it just stood there, a rusting husk with its canopy, drooping, glass smeared with dust, pumps gutted and tagged with sun-faded graffiti. They say even the raccoons wouldn't hole up in it. It was March 5th when the footage came in. Nocona. PD didn't usually care about abandoned property unless kids were setting fires, but that night was different. That night, Deputy Ron Tibbetts got a call from a cell tower alert, motion-triggered camera feed from a county-installed system. It showed movement at 2:43 a.m. Something had tripped the old security line Hal had wired into the breaker box 20 years earlier. Deputy Tibbetts drove out there thinking it'd be another meth head or maybe a teenager with a TikTok flashlight. And too much time, the drive was dead quiet. No stars, no bugs, no wind. Just the long low hum of tires rolling on blacktop and the occasional crunch of armadillo roadkill. He pulled up, spotlight swinging, and parked crooked at the edge of the cracked concrete pad where the pumps used to stand. The place looked dead, but the lights inside the gas station were on. That was the first thing. The second was that the glass front door, which had been boarded up last time Ron checked, was clean, like Windex clean. No boards, no dust, just a glass panel so pristine he could see his own dumbfounded face staring back. He opened the door and called out. No response. The bell above didn't ding. It moaned like an old man trying to clear his throat underwater. Inside, it looked like someone had reopened it. Shelves fully stocked, not new stuff, but vintage items. Coke bottles in thick glass, Zagnut bars, motor oil cans with metal caps. Everything like it had time traveled straight from 1993. The floor was freshly mopped. The air smelled like citrus cleaner and dusted mothballs. He called out again. "This is Nocona PD. Anyone here?" Nothing. He moved to the counter, hand on his holster. The register was closed, but behind the glass of the candy rack was something odd. Fingernail marks in the chocolate. Like someone had dug into the bars, desperate. He turned toward the camera mounted above the door. The light on it blinked red. Later, the footage would show what happened. The man came in at 2:43 a.m. alone. Walked straight through the doors. Tall figure, maybe 6'4", wearing a brown duster, old leather boots. His face wasn't visible, not because it was obscured, but because the camera seemed to glitch every time it tried to focus on his head. Just static, then a blur, then a blank white patch like the man's face had been erased. He walked in, stood in the middle of the store. Then, precisely 19 seconds later, the lights blew out. One by one. First the overhead fluorescents, then the coolers, then the camera feed. Darkness swallowed the screen. No flicker, no jump cut. Just pitch black silence. When the lights returned at 2:51 a.m., the man was gone, and someone else was standing there. This person, if you could call it that, was facing away from the camera. Barefoot, pale skin blotched with red patches. Wearing a hospital gown. Long black hair plastered down their back, wet like it had just come out of a lake. They stood perfectly still for 3 full minutes. Then, without turning, they lifted one arm and pointed toward the cooler. And then the feed ended. Deputy Tibbetts never told anyone what he saw after that. Not his wife, not the chief, not the therapist they forced him to see after the breakdown. But the next day, his dashcam footage was found still recording, aimed at the gas station. Static. White noise. His cruiser door was open. His sidearm was still in its holster. His flashlight lay on the ground, battery drained. He was gone. And when they checked the gas station again, this time in daylight, the door was boarded up again. The boards weathered, the glass dusty and cracked. No stock on the shelves, no power in the lines. And the security camera was gone. Not broken, just ... gone. Mounting bolts rusted over like it had been missing for years. A week later, the county received an anonymous package. It contained a single VHS tape, labeled in black marker, "Play at midnight, no return address." Just Nocona PD's name scribbled on a torn envelope. The sheriff, against better judgment, played it in the evidence room. What they saw was worse than the first tape. It was inside the gas station. A fixed view from somewhere near the ceiling, as if the camera were floating. The picture wavered slightly, as if it were breathing. The store looked just like it did that night. Stocked, lit, clean. Deputy Tibbetts stood near the counter. But it wasn't him. It looked like him. Same build, same uniform, but his movements were wrong. Stiff, disjointed. When he turned, his eyes were black sockets. When he spoke, and he did speak, it was in reverse. Garbled syllables, wet choking vowels. Then the feed zoomed unnaturally into his mouth, and in his throat something pulsed. They turned it off, burned the tape. But by then, it was too late. Every person who watched that footage started getting calls. Late night. Always the same. Number 000000000. If they picked up, they'd hear a gas station bell chime. Then a voice whispering, "You're already inside." 3 of them disappeared. One burned their house down and sat inside until the flames took him. Another was found miles outside of Nocona, walking barefoot through an abandoned cattle field. Eyes plucked out and clutched in his own hands like he dug them free to unsee something. And the gas station? It still sits there. Locals don't talk about it anymore. Google Maps won't pull it up. If you tried to find it, the GPS reroutes you to the nearest Buc-ee's, no matter what address you type. But truckers say you can still see it late at night, especially when the fog rolls off. The fields. Sometimes the lights are on. Sometimes there's a man in a brown duster standing just inside, waiting, and sometimes you don't see the station at all, not just a security camera, hovering above the road, blinking red, watching, recording, waiting for someone else to walk in.